entire thing is satire, much like The Onion. Everything, quote, everything on this website is fiction. It is not a lie. It is not fake news, but it's just not real. If you believe that is real, you should have your head examined. They wrote on their own About Us page, any similarities between this site's pure fantasy and actual people, places, and events are purely coincidental, and all images should be considered altered and satirical. I want to point that out because, ironically enough, we're going to spend a lot of time talking about the ACA today. The President of the United States posts this on his Truth Social page. The website that he took it from on their own About page says, basically, if you believe this shit, you're stupid. So there's that. Okay? How ironic. In addition, so that's one thing. Also, this is something else that the president posted. I'm recommending to Senate Republicans that the hundreds of billions, this came out on November the 8th. So this was on what, Saturday, before the churning and the burning in the Senate yesterday. I'm recommending to Senate Republicans that the hundreds of billions of dollars currently being sent to money-sucking insurance companies in order to save the bad health care provided by Obamacare be sent directly to the people so that they can purchase their own much better health care and have money left over. In other words, take from the big bad insurance companies, give it to the people, and terminate per dollar spent the worst health care anywhere in the world, Obamacare. Unrelated, we must still terminate the filibuster. Sounds great, right? Except, who do you pay the money to? And again, this is something that he will use to say, see, the president wanted to give us money. You see that? Basic economics would tell you if people are, don't forget, we were promised Doge checks, right? How's that coming? Funny how that works, isn't it? You take money from the system, you put it in the hands of the American taxpayer. Sounds great. Many people, you think everybody's going to use it to spend it on healthcare? Of course not. Somebody just said it. You pay less when you pay for things in bulk. So the for-profit health insurance industry suddenly has people not participating. What do you think happens? The prices go up. I think I even have sound from Mark Wayne Mullen. He's talking about this. And you want to talk about being in the fucking cult? Here you go.
The president said this morning, I'm recommending to Senate Republicans that the hundreds of billions of dollars currently being sent to money-sucking insurance companies in order to save the bad health care provided by Obamacare be sent directly to the people so they can purchase their own much better health care and have money left over.
Absolutely brilliant move by the president, and I agree with him 100%. These insurance companies, we're subsidizing them to have high health premiums anyways. Keep in mind, ACA, affordable health care, has not been affordable.
That's simply not true. We're going to talk about that right now. The argument for the ACA that the Republicans are attempting to make is that it's not affordable. What it did was offer people like myself, for example, an opportunity to purchase health care that because we didn't qualify for Medicaid, Medicare, we didn't have a job or employer-based pay, and we couldn't afford private insurance. That's what the ACA is, okay? Far from perfect, but we're going to get into some of the stats for just a second. So once again, here we are. Mark Wayne Mullen thinks what the president wants to do is brilliant. Of course you would say that, because you've got to convince your feeble-minded base that this is a good thing.
Obama said it was going to drop premiums by 25%. As we sit here right now, without the premium increase that the healthcare industry is putting on the American people, it's up 221%. And why are we subsidizing them an additional 4% when they're making record profits? Which I'm a capitalist. I'm okay with insurance companies making money, but taxpayers shouldn't pad their pockets even more on top of that. What President Trump is saying is, hey, let's give the money to the individual and let them choose their own health care and use the money for...
Who are they going to buy it from? They're going to buy it from the health insurance industry's dumbass. It's...
actual health care, rather making insurance companies even more profitable, I think is brilliant.
Of course you do. Of course you do. So as a reminder, the president using his Truth Social page to spread not only lies, this is not even a lie, it's just fucking nonsense. It is complete fucking satire. Okay? complete satire about the Obamacare royalties being paid to Barack Obama. And then that stuff by saying, oh yeah, let's just tell the American people that we'll give them whatever it is, whatever amount. Notice so that basically is the Republican healthcare plan. So think about that. Okay. So let's get into yesterday. Now, I spent some time, and I want to thank Danny. I jumped in her live last night, and it was contentious. And I have so much respect for her, and that's kind of the point. We're trying to have legitimate political discourse, right? I know a lot of people this morning are saying that Democrats caved and all these kinds of things. Now, I'm not going to sit here today and defend moderate Democrats. You guys know how I feel about the status quo. I'm not going to do that. I'm also going to try to be objective. So I'm not going to say I'm siding with one decision or another. I'm just going to explain to you from my perspective what I see are the facts here. Okay? Two things. First, the 10 votes or the 60-40 vote happened last night to end cloture, which means they're not going to debate on it anymore. So there's still another vote. So I'm going to play some sound from under the desk news, from V from Under the Desk News, because there are still people. Well, first let me tell you this. So the names involved are, these are the senators that voted. These are the senators that voted to, at least end cloture, so that they can have continued conversations. Durbin, Rosen, Cortez Masto, King, Kane, Fetterman, Shaheen, and Hassan. Those are the 8 names. Okay, so those are the people that are negotiating with Republican League can make progress on ending the government shutdown. All Democrats with the exception of Angus King from Maine. He's an independent. Okay, so I want to play what V from Under the Desk News had to say about this, and I think it's interesting. So if you are represented by any of those senators, there's a call to action.
From the Senate floor, it is 10:20 p.m. This is after those Senate Democrats crossed the aisle to vote with Republicans to end the shutdown. There is another vote that has to happen to finalize this decision. So if one of these people is your senator, you need to start calling them and telling them how you feel about them ending a shutdown without getting any concessions. Word on the street is Senator Kane and Senator Rosen are both willing to consider voting no on the final vote. There's also talk that the senators from New Hampshire, that's Shaheen and Hassan, are also willing to consider changing their votes back to no if they hear from enough constituents that they don't want them to vote with Republicans and end the shutdown for nothing. If any of these people are your senator, you should be giving them a call anyway, but that's a little bit of the tea on the folks who got freaked out after seeing the public's reaction to them voting yes with the Republicans on this first vote. There are also some Republican senators who are potentially not going to vote for this proposal on the final vote because they're hearing from their constituents that this proposal, the one that does not extend the Affordable Care Act subsidies, would hurt their constituents greatly. So what I'm saying is there's still time. Your senators are listening. Their staff is answering the phone. They are watching content being posted on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube right now. They see that the public does not approve of this. Keep that pressure up. The final vote will either be tomorrow or Tuesday, so we've got at least 24 hours to make our concerns heard. Remember that the thorn in this proposal to end the government shutdown is that it does not extend the Affordable Care Act subsidies, and it will immediately make people's insurance premiums double or triple. Doesn't matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat. That's just how the maths. In addition, ending the shutdown right now does not guarantee that congresswoman from Arizona will get sworn in any quicker. Does not guarantee that the SNAP benefits will get distributed any faster. If this version of the proposal passes, it really just wastes the last 40 days of shutdown. And lastly, while it does look very suspicious that Chuck Schumer voted no after being the person who originally had the idea to compromise with the Republicans, it turns out that he did not, in fact, get these particular senators to vote no. These are 8 genuinely rogue senators who voted with the Republicans against both the establishment's advice and their other peers' advice.
Okay, so I don't agree with everything that they said there. So I'm going to try to take you through from my perspective, objectively. And I expect criticism, and I'm not here to have you guys agree with me. That's not what I'm trying to do. My expectation here is that we have a conversation about this as to what it is that we see, what it is that we know, and next steps. A reminder, the 60-40 vote last night was for cloture, to end debate on this issue. The next step would be to vote on this new CR, if you will. Okay? Going into yesterday, what we knew was the government was shut down. Okay? We all know that. We also know that the reason that we're here to begin with, right, is that in the big, beautiful piece of shit bill, Republicans cut Medicaid, Medicare, SNAP benefits, and did not include extensions to the ACA subsidies. So when this started, Democrats were fighting for your health care. Yours, mine, Republicans, Democrats, independents, non-voters, etc. That's what they were fighting for. Okay? That has not changed. Now, I have said from the very beginning, there's been no appetite for the Republican Party to extend any type of health care extension to the ACA in particular. We know that. They need it to pay for their tax cuts. The challenge now that Republicans have, because again, I'm not trying to, I'm going to walk the line here, friends, so if you just bear with me. What we know, right, is that part of the deal that was negotiated to get the eight senators on board, I wrote it down, I just want to make sure I got the data right. Stopgap to continue to fund the government until January. So if nothing changes and there's no votes and or no support for any of the things that they've asked for, at the end of January, we're going to be right back here again. The government will shut down at the end of January if nothing changes. The revised CR does include full year funding for SNAP and WIC. So even if the government does shut down again in January, SNAP and WIC would still be funded. As it currently sits now, our president literally went to the Supreme Court saying, listen, I don't want to feed poor people, so please give me a pass. People are blaming Ketanji Brown Jackson. She followed procedure. I get it. People want a finger point. I totally understand. But if you go inside the beltway, so to speak, you'll see that she was literally following procedure. That's what the Supreme Court is supposed to do. We forget that, okay? So keep in mind, SNAP and WIC would be funded under this new proposal for a year. One less thing to worry about. Not permanent. That's what negotiations come into play. That's one side of it. All federal workers will get paid and go back to work with back pay. Again, this is under the new proposal. It blocks Trump from any more firings, and it forces them to hire back every single worker that had been RIFed, reduction in force, Project 2025 by definition since October 1st until today. And keeps the filibuster in place. The Republicans were never going to vote to get rid of the filibuster, even though Trump had been pressuring them from the get-go. And although no ACA subsidies are part of this deal, we'll talk about that more in a second, John Thune is now on the record to hold a vote extending the changes by mid-December. So that's what's in it, right? That's what's in the new proposal. Now let's think about that for a second, because I've talked to you guys very, very often about, in politics, oftentimes it has to be harm reduction. There's no leverage up until last night for the Republicans to vote on extending the ACA subsidies. Did anybody think that the Republicans are suddenly going to introduce a health plan by the end of the year? The answer is no, they wouldn't. What this does is it puts people back to work. I'm just trying to be objective here. I'm just talking about the facts. I'll offer my opinion when I'm done. What this does is it puts people back to work, gives people back pay, makes sure that essential workers are getting paid, make sure that people were fired get their job back, make sure that WIC and SNAP are funded for a full year, even if the government shuts down again in January. Those are positive things. It still doesn't address the healthcare issue, which I get. The math has not changed. 57% of all ACA enrollees live in states represented by Republican members of Congress. 78% live in states who voted for Donald Trump in 2024. Okay? I've got some more data on that, as a matter of fact. Excuse me. Everybody keep tapping, please. Where is it? From 20 to 25, the Affordable Care Act enrollment grew by about 36% in states that voted for Kamala Harris in the 2024 presidential election, compared with more than 150% in states supported by President Trump last year. That has not changed. Okay? So if they don't make any movement on extending those subsidies, the people who are going to be harmed the most are Republican voters. Our members, our people supported by Republicans in Congress and represented by Republicans in Congress and who voted for Donald Trump in 2024. That's the math, okay? So again, trying to be objective here, that's the math. Exactly. That's exactly the point. So now, because there was no leverage at all, the only leverage the Democrats had, think about this. The big ugly bill passes, so the only tool politically that Democrats had would be to do what they did, not vote to get past this, to filibuster. That changed last night. On the record, in this legislation that they're going to attempt to pass through the CR, we'll talk about the House in just a second because that's a whole other ballgame. We'll even talk about the Senate because there's even reporting members of the Senate won't support this. Okay, so this part of this negotiation puts John Thune on the record. In fact, here he is from last night.
40 long days. I'm hopeful
John Thune is the Senate Majority Leader.
We can finally bring the shutdown to an end. And I don't need to go over all the reasons why it's imperative that we get the government open as soon as possible. From the truly precarious situation we are in with regard to air travel to the fact that our staffs have been working without pay for a full 40 days now, all of us, Republicans and Democrats who support this bill, know that the time to act is now. And so in just a few minutes, I will call up the vehicle for a clean continuing resolution packaged with 3 bipartisan year-long appropriations bills: agricultural appropriations, military construction, VA appropriations, and legislative branch appropriations. These bills will fund SNAP for the entire fiscal year. They will fund WIC for the entire fiscal year. And they will fund our veterans for the entire fiscal year. After 40 days of uncertainty, I'm profoundly glad to be able to announce that nutrition programs, our veterans, and other critical priorities will have their full year funding. And my goal is to quickly move to other full year appropriations bills. As I've said many times, I firmly believe that the way to fund the government is by passing appropriations bills through regular order, a process that gives senators from both parties the fullest chance to make their voices heard. Mr. President, I also want to mention health care. There's been a lot of talk over the last several weeks on both sides of the aisle about the health care crisis in this country. And I'm thankful to be able to say that we have senators, both Democrat and Republican, who are eager to get to work to address that crisis in a bipartisan way. These senators are not interested in political games. They're interested in finding real ways to address health care costs for American families. We also have a president who is willing to sit down and get to work on this issue.
Okay.
And so I'm looking forward to seeing what solutions might be brought forward. Regardless, as I have said for weeks to my Democrat friends, I will schedule a vote on their proposal, and I've committed to having that vote no later than the second week in December. Mr. President, again, I am optimistic.
That right there. So you're on the record, right? It's just it's an agreement to have a vote. So I am trying again to be objective here. I don't support status quo centrist Democrats. I never have. I believe that they're conservative. And as you guys know, I believe you're either progressive or you're conservative. You're either trying to move the ball down the field. Patriots, by the way, one of the best teams in the NFL. You're trying to move the ball down the field or you're stuck in the mud. Okay? So what this does from my perspective objectively is it puts everything at the feet of the Republicans, and now they have to do what they said that they would do. Mike Johnson, John Thune, members of the Republican leadership in the House and the Senate, other elected officials on the Republican side have said, hey, just open the government and we'll negotiate on the ACA. Okay, here's your chance to do it. I'll remind you once again that 57% of all ACA enrollees live in states represented by Republicans in Congress, and 78% live in states that voted for Donald Trump. That has not changed. So those people who the Republicans on the record. So if they don't vote on it, we're right back where we were, except they're on the record now saying that they would. I know it sounds dirty, but this is politics at its dirtiest. This is literally politics at its absolute dirtiest. And I didn't see an end to this, right? I didn't see an end. The Republicans are unwilling to introduce any legislation on health care other than Donald Trump saying, oh yeah, I'll just give you money back and you do whatever you want. That's not healthcare. Well, on the record is on the record. You may not like that, but it is still on the record. Absolutely, I get it. It's still on the record. I understand that's not, it doesn't feel good, but it's still on the record. Keep in mind, the big thing here that people are not willing to talk about from a Republican side is that they've had a decade or more to create a healthcare plan that will be affordable for the American consumer, and they haven't. Even MTG has blamed her party, saying, you guys complain about this all the time. She's like, I don't like Obamacare, but the Republicans have done nothing. So it puts the ball in their court now. I don't want people to think that, let me back up a second. The whole point, the statement, the mandate that the Democrats have put down over the shutdown was to protect health care. That hasn't changed. They still want the ACA subsidies. Now what it does is it puts a little bit more pressure on Republicans because they said, listen, if you said if we open the government, you said you would vote for it. This is impacting your voters more than it's impacting ours. So that happens. So if they don't vote on it, if they agree to the terms of this new CR, people go back to work, they get paid, SNAP gets funded, WIC gets funded, federal employees get hired back that were fired with back pay. If you're keeping score, to be honest, if you're keeping score objectively, there are more pros to this than there are cons, in my opinion. I want conversations about this today. I don't expect everybody to agree with me, but we got to try to look at this objectively. There's a lot of clickbait going on last night, and I get it, but we've got to look at this objectively, okay? We've got to look at this objectively. At some point, this was going to end. So the other side of this coin would be if the Democrats continue to hold and not vote for this, right? Those ACA subsidies are still going to expire at the end of the year. So then how long does this go? How long do we keep SNAP not funded? How long do we keep all these things that Republicans have now gone on the record to support, like not funding programs like, WIC and SNAP, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So in 2 months' time, 3 months' time, Democrats say we got to turn the government back on. Nothing has changed. This puts pressure on the Republicans, in my opinion, strictly my opinion. This puts pressure on them. So that's kind of where I sit on this whole thing. I know that that's may not be a popular opinion, and I was getting dragged apparently around the TikTok streets last night. That's fine. That's fine. I can handle that. I can handle that. What I'm trying to remind people of is that we're here. The reason that we're here is because Republicans did not address healthcare. Republicans cut funding to Medicaid, Medicare, SNAP. Republicans fired federal workers based on Project 2025. Republicans reduced the size of government at the expense of critical and essential workers. Republicans, their tariff policy, their illegality, their overreaching, their authoritarian reasons are the reason that we're here now. Okay? There's hundreds. There's 8 Democrats that should be in our crosshairs to justify why they did this. But the Republican Party as a whole are the ones to blame. Plain and simple. Again, being objective, if there was a health care plan, an alternative to the ACA, that provided the coverage that I have now, which again, it's not perfect, but it helps. 62% of Americans agree. They see the ACA as favorable. 62%. It's popular. It's just gained popularity year after year after year after year after year. It's popular. Okay, this is studies done by the Kaiser Family Foundation, numerous polling. It's popular. So I don't know what the other option would be. I don't. And again, I'm not defending this. I don't like the word caved. If you want to use caved, sure. But government requires cooperation. It requires negotiation. Republicans proved that they were not interested in negotiating. They've lied the entire time about all of it. So here we are with now the pressure is on them politically. Now the pressure is on them. So if they don't hold that vote, it's a vote. It's no guarantee it's going to pass. And then that leads us to the House. Mike Johnson has expressed no interest at all in extending health insurance subsidies. There are even members of his own party that may not vote for this. So you use it politically in the midterms. I hate to say that, But this is about political strategy. The wins have been at the backs of Democrats for a long time now because we saw the results of last Tuesday. We've seen the results of midterm elections and special elections. We've seen this. This is politics, guys. It's not pretty. This is politics, though. And it's not pretty. It's not going to, there's no perfect solution here, but this is where we sit now. And these are the cards that have been dealt, and Republicans are going to have a lot of answering to do since the majority of the ACA subsidies go to support their voters. Period. So let's keep our anger focused on the people that brought us here, and that would be today's Republican Party. It doesn't guarantee anything other than a vote, potentially. We'll see. John Thune seems like he's a little bit different than Mitch McConnell, although I don't know, but we'll see. Righteous, how are you this morning?
Hi there. Good morning. I wanted to bring up the issue that they are forcing us to buy a Medicare plan by the 10th, and we don't know what we're buying. And I think that gets missed because it takes a lot of work on the ground to deal with the volume of seniors and disabled people who are on those plans to be able to negotiate the actual terms of it because the language is so difficult. And so I don't want to lose track of that in this conversation, just as a reminder that date's coming up. So yeah,
well,
that's it.
Yeah, but that hasn't changed. That was the case on Friday of last week before any of this happened. That was still the situation that we're dealing with, which is
right. I just want to make sure that we're reminding them that they are selling us something under duress without actually having the information on it, and the downstream effect that's going to cause for long-term care facilities as well as independent living, and having to negotiate it for all of the clients within those facilities. You can imagine it's a huge nightmare. So.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I'm on the ACA myself, and at this point I have to make some difficult decisions because I can't afford my business. I can't afford to run my business. I can't afford to pay my mortgage and my car payment and my healthcare increase. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Right. And also with the Medicaid working rules, you have to work so many hours, and that's what they were complaining about on their side, is that nobody works, we just take money. But right. But if we get rid of Walmart is really using a lot of labor of disabled people in their planning, right? Because they get extra government benefits for letting us work there. So I'm a little worried about that because that's a lot of people that are doing stocking and everything else too. That's going to be a nightmare. Wherever Walmart fails, it's usually copy and pasted through corporations that are front facing. So I really hope to get it together. That'd be great. I'm disappointed though that we caved, we blinked. And
I hear that, but again, what's the alternative?
Well, we were all planning to push it out a little further, and I'm just playing devil's advocate. I'm just saying we talk a lot about. I'm just playing devil's advocate, right? Yeah. If we're willing, what were we willing to do? We've been talking for almost a year about how we're not going to be playing around with these people. We've been being told by Black women to hold our money and keep our foot on them, and we are caving. And so it just feels like a big disappointment that we've waited for only 40 whatever days, right?
I get that, Righteous, but again, the question I'm asking, what's the alternative?
We let a few things fail.
Like what?
And they're going to get really spooked because the majority of their people are relying on these plans.
But that's going to happen. I guess that's my point. But that's my point, though, Righteous, because at the end of the year, those subsidies are going to expire anyway, which means Republicans have to vote on it. They've got to solve that. So my question again, this is just for conversational
But are they going
conversational
to
purposes.
stay at work though? You know what I mean? Like they don't know how to work. They don't want to work. They want to.
I know, but what's the alternative? I guess what I'm asking you is like, what is the alternative? What's the alternative? Because at some point the government has to open. We're only going to get SNAP funding for a month. It's going to be partial, and now the Trump administration is asking for the money back. So what's the alternative?
I'm really not sure.
Exactly. That's kind of my point, right? So that might, because this has to end somehow, some way. This piece of, if you're looking at this strictly from a harm reduction perspective, right? This particular piece of legislation reduces harm for lots of people. It reduces harm for lots of people if it gets across the finish line. Republicans still have to have, they hold the power. They still have to have a vote on extending the ACA subsidies. Now there's more political pressure on them, once again, because they're on the record saying that they would hold a vote on it. If they don't, then they don't, because they would have to do it anyway. That then leads them to have to answer to their voters, because their voters are the ones that are the largest percentage of recipients on the ACA to begin with.
Oh yeah, I'm in South Carolina, but Lindsey Graham won't meet with you unless you give him $10,000. So
of course,
it's a pretty crappy place to be trying to negotiate with them. We did have a blue wave though here, so yay.
Yeah. Well, thanks for jumping in today,
keep
Righteous.
it up. All right, thank you.
I appreciate it. See you later. You got it. No problem. And again, I'm going to be asking that question a lot today, guys. Like, what's the alternative? I'm hoping people can just try to take a step back for just a second and look at the alternative here. What is the alternative? Right? Because the federal government funds SNAP, funds WIC. That's not going to change. That money still has to get appropriated. So what would the answer then be? And I don't know it. I don't know the answer. I'm just trying to look at this. If I'm stacking it up, these are all the people that are going to be harmed. Under the current conditions, it's people on SNAP, it's people on WIC, it's federal employees, it's essential workers, it's the military, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay? It's a long, 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 long list, including people who have health care. I get it. I understand. So the healthcare issue still exists, but now potentially we get people back to work. We get essential workers paid. We get people that who were furloughed, who were fired under Project 2025 direction back to work. That's harm reduction. I know it's not perfect, and again, Republicans were never going to relent on the filibuster, even though Donald Trump wanted them to. It's never going to relent. Never. So that's kind of that's sort of where I sit on this whole thing now. And I want to hear from other people this morning, but there's more to talk about, but it's one of these things that this is where we're at. Devin, how are you this morning?
Very good, sir. How are you?
Fine. Thank you. What's on your mind?
Really just kind of picking up where you left off with the previous caller is, Democrat and somewhat crashing out. And I get your point. It's perfectly valid that, hey, 42 million people were going hungry. However, what we have now just done by yielding this argument to now allowing this to proceed without even a vote on ACA, without even necessarily a commitment to vote, it's not anywhere in the verbiage. Apparently, it's a pinky promise. But bottom line is, what we've now done is we have established, because Trump has said now, he is on record as having said now, that he is completely content with defunding SNAP. Argued that a good number of those folks apparently are Democrats anyway, so what does he care whether they starve? That you can run on for 200 elections into the future. And now the Supreme Court decided that they were going to interject and allow Trump's stay, his attempt to try to keep SNAP funds from being distributed. Tanya Jackson, shockingly, allowed...
No, that's procedural. That's procedural. Let's speak to this factually. That's procedural. She's given the appeals court, as she should, the ability to chime in altogether en banc. So it's procedural. Fine. Let's be careful before we go down that road, okay?
Sure, but the crux is your question of to what end? What were we playing for if we wanted this to go down any further? Well, number one, if Republicans don't care about 42 million Americans eating, what are they going to care about 24 million Americans not getting health care? They won't.
What's the alternative, though, Devin?
The alternative, first of all, we should have at least held out to allow the Supreme Court to have an opportunity to weigh in. It would be atrocious, but it would be amazing to see whether or not it would be a 6-3 decision to allow the Trump administration to hold on to SNAP funds during this, only this. This is the first time ever that SNAP funds have not been distributed during a government shutdown. Would have been intriguing to see.
I get that, but don't forget, there's a small contingency bucket. Even we're talking about 1 month of SNAP payments. 1 month.
Sure. Well, yes, 1 month of SNAP payments that they are willing to admit to, and apparently only partial, and apparently it's in a dark fund within the Department of Agriculture. I get it. Mysteriously, they were able to find a way to fund wages to the Department of Defense through a mysterious grant or donation,
of course,
an anonymous donation of some kind. So
of course,
it's not like money couldn't be found. It's that he didn't want to find it.
Well, it's a coulda, shoulda, woulda. We can only go by what we know. There's a contingency fund that's under the executive branch authority through the USDA that can fund SNAP for 1 month. That's what we know. Okay. And I hear you, all very valid points. But what I'm trying to say is, what is the alternative?
The alternative is we should have, as much as you're advocating that now we have a chance to put.
I'm not advocating. I just want to be very clear. I'm not advocating. I'm just trying to talk about this objectively. Like what we know. What are the alternatives?
Well, apparently what we've gotten out of this bargain, correct me if I'm wrong, is a pinky promise from only the Senate. The House apparently is not on board with the idea, at least conceptually. That sometime in December, we'll get a vote on whether or not Republicans are okay with extending ACA tax subsidies.
Which had to happen anyway, because the ACA subsidies are going to expire by the end of the year, right?
Right, which perfect. Yes, exactly. That's kind of my point. We won nothing with that. They would have had to do it anyway, and so that doesn't even seem like
weren't going to do it, though.
Material progress.
I disagree, because there was no leverage for them to do it. Now their majority leader has gone on the record, take it for what it's worth, has gone on the record and said we will have a vote on this issue. So that's different than what we had prior to yesterday.
So good. We have a second lieutenant, if I'm going to use a military analogy. We have a second lieutenant who has said that he's going to allow a vote to happen in one half of one house of the legislative branch, and yet his boss's boss.
I get it, but I get it, Devin. But what is the alternative? This is what I'm trying to.
So
to do nothing.
Apparently, SNAP people are nothing but Democrats. This, at least by rhetoric of our dear leader. So crux is, from my point of view, would be, look, I get it. It is a hellish road that we're talking about. 42 million people potentially starving. And apparently our churches aren't stepping up to the plate to help in any meaningful way. But the crux is, I would have held out a bit longer. I don't know how a bit looks, other than to
what
say
does that mean?
Again,
though, so let me challenge that, Devin. So, but how long? Right? So how long do you go?
At least until the Supreme Court heard that case. Because now
they are hearing it. It's being resolved. But again, the SNAP benefits, and I'm just doing this for legitimate political discourses. I'm just challenging your thinking for everybody who's watching today. Yep. So that decision is going to come down tomorrow, but that's only 1 month. That's only 1 month of funding. Okay, if the expectation is the Trump administration is just going to go and find money to fund SNAP, they're not going to do that. They're just not. They're going to use the excuse. They said that there was only $7 to $8. I forget the actual number. $7 to $8 billion available. They were only going to partially pay. Now they're asking states to pay the money back for some reason. So that's all that's available. So at the end of this month, right, there is no SNAP funding unless Congress and the appropriations can fund it.
So what that would have given us then,
that,
so then that gives us a very concrete answer to your question. Holding out for what? You would hold out until tomorrow. Supreme Court issues its ruling. Let's assume for 5 seconds that the ruling says that the Trump administration must release what funds that exist, what funds are available. That gives you till the end of November. Then there we have
but that decision, again, the vote has not, there's still no vote. They still have to vote on whether or not the CR is going to pass. So the likelihood we're supposed to get an answer from the Supreme Court or actually the appeals court tomorrow. It might even come down today. So we'll have that information prior to this. I hear what you're saying. I'm just challenging everybody to think about what is the alternative, because the entire issue for Democrats going into this thing that I still support, that they supported, was healthcare. There was nothing. There was no signals from anyone in the House or the Senate that were going to do anything about healthcare. If that's the case, then this new CR, if they agree to sign it, funds SNAP. Can we agree that funding SNAP is better than not funding it?
No, agreed. I mean, but
okay, can we agree? Hold on, I'm going to go down the list. Hold on. I'm going to go down the list. Can we agree that funding WIC is better than not funding it?
Sure, but it would have.
Okay, hold on, hang on. I'm going to go down the list. Hold on a second. Can we agree that hiring back people who were fired illegally, in my opinion, and guaranteeing them back pay? Can we agree that that's better?
Yeah. Have you read that? Have you read that verbiage though? Yeah,
it's in there. It's pretty clean, as a matter of fact. It does. It hires them back with back pay.
The devil is in the detail on this. Doge still exists, and that doesn't mean that they can turn around and unfire them.
It does. That's what this legislation means. That's what this legislation is, Devin. That's my point. So that's what this legislation is. You signed it. That means that those people who got terminated get hired back.
I understand that the negotiation process has given us a modicum more. A table scrap has been offered and negotiated, and there will be something. As long as you look dark enough into the dark enough abyss, you'll find a silver lining. There are silver linings here. There are. I will give that capitulation, no doubt. Okay. However,
that's my point, right? Again, if we're talking about harm reduction, we've got to figure out a solution. I've got a lot of folks that are requesting this morning. I appreciate you jumping in. I'll give you one more minute to kind of wrap up what you wanted to say.
No, I think we're just going to turn around and we're just going to go round and round on the same point. I think at the end of the day, the crux is whether they negotiated a actual full budget versus and a point that you haven't yet made, and I don't know whether that's intentional or not, is this doesn't actually fund the entire government. This is not an agreement.
Oh, I know. They still have to do. I know that they still have to agree on the appropriations. I totally get it. This is a CR. That would have had to have been done anyway.
Right. So would have and following that logic, then funding of SNAP and funding of WIC would have been part of that. Really, about the only silver lining that you would not have gotten, guaranteed would not have gotten, would be the rehiring of the formerly fired people from Doge. Get that. That is the only true win of this little negotiation.
Funding SNAP and WIC is also a big win.
But you get it anyway, as long as the negotiation resulted in any kind of a budget, decided budget, you would have gotten that anyway.
But when?
Who knows? And who knows even in this case? This doesn't guarantee that it's a done deal today, tomorrow, next week. The House hasn't agreed to any of this.
I totally agree. You're right. That sort of makes my point. But thanks for jumping in today, Devin. Like I said, I got a lot of people that want to request. I appreciate it, though. Thanks for being here.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
You got it. See you later. Again, the question I'm going to ask people, okay, and I'm just trying to talk about what it is that we know. I'm not picking a side on this issue. I just want people to be fed, right? I want WIC benefits to go out to people who deserve it and who've earned it and who need it. And also I want federal employees to get hired back who are, in my opinion, illegally terminated to begin with. We've got to try to find, I'm not trying to justify what happened. I despise status quo Democrats. I really, really do. And by the way, contact your senators. If you're represented by Tim Kaine or by the Jackie Rosen and Cortez Masto in Nevada, Shaheen and Hassan in New Hampshire, Fetterman, there's rumblings that they may, if they hear from enough of their constituents, like if this is really important enough to you, in the old mantra of do something, then contact them, contact their offices. The question I'm going to be asking people throughout the day today is, what is, more specifically, what's the alternative? That's what I'm trying to find. Like, what's the alternative? Good morning. Hi, Jen. How are you?
Sorry, my internet stinks. Anyways, good morning, Steve. How are you?
I'm okay. How you doing?
Good. There's two things I want to say, and I'll be quick because I know you have a lot of people waiting. The first thing that that I wanted to say was that the people that listen to you are intelligent. They get it. They can critically think. My problem, or concern, I should say, my concern with what you're saying, because I get what you're saying, is that the other part of the puzzle is to get the other side or those other people to understand what you're saying. And that's going to be the hard part, because what's going to happen now is that the Republicans are going to spin it, and Trump is going to spin it. And then those people that don't listen and don't critically think and don't do the research are going to start spreading that like wildfire. And then the message you're sending is lost. So my question to you is, how do you combat that?
Okay, I don't disagree with what you said, but the reality is those ACA subsidies are going away at the end of the year.
Right.
And the overwhelming majority of the people who are beneficiaries of those subsidies are Republican voters. So unless there is a solution to the healthcare problem, it is going to affect them. And we've seen from the polling, and we saw on Election Day, we've seen from all these things that is important to people, right? So that's not going to change. The Republicans still have to solve this healthcare crisis that they created. Right?
Got it. Yeah. I'm wondering how
you know what I
Trump's
mean?
I'm wondering
right.
how Trump's going to spin that.
They can spin it however they want to. They can spin it however they want to. They still have to solve for it, right? They still have to solve for it. 56% of voters, ACA, it's actually 57% of ACA recipients live in districts represented by Republicans in Congress, and 78% live in states that Trump won in 2024. That doesn't change. Mm-hmm. That does not change, especially now. Now, I would agree that the Democrats have got to message around this. We attempted to offer an alternative for Republicans to help their voters with the cost of health care. They did not seem interested. It's not. This is politics. This is the dirty side. This is what happens when you have one particular party that does not give a shit about the middle class. That all they care about are tax cuts for their rich voters. Those subsidies were going to expire at the end of the year anyway. Now, if this was in August and we knew that the subsidies were not going to be expiring until the end of the year, I would say, let's continue this. Let's continue this shutdown. But right now, those subsidies are going to expire. There's no leverage at all for the Republicans to vote on it. Now there is. Now you've said you're going to vote on this. Now you've got to carry the burden of helping solve this healthcare crisis that you've created. So, yes. Listen, I know there's a lot of people in here who are surprised by me saying this, and I'm not taking a stance. I'm trying to find. We've got to say what at the end of the day, what is the solution? Does the government just stay closed forever? It can't. People are not going to get their SNAP benefits. People are not going to get their WIC benefits. Federal employees are not going to get paid. So if we're looking at the list, we have to find something somewhere to say, okay, if this is progress, listen, I don't expect the House to even vote on this, to be honest. So this is not even close to the finish yet. But what it does is it's put Republicans on the record to say, if you want to solve the healthcare problem, you said you would solve it. You said you would hold a vote on it. And then if they don't vote in support of their own voters, that's something you campaign on.
So I want to offer this to your listeners, and it's just an idea. I'm not telling anybody to do this. But originally, and we spoke about this over the weekend, that I wanted to start a movement called Exempt for SNAP, where people go get their W-2, refile their W-2 with their employer, where you file exempt and not $1 is taken out of your paycheck and sent to the federal government. So that doesn't mean you go spend it. You have to save it because it's, you are eventually going to have to pay it, right? But the point is to pressure the federal government to fund these programs, right? Because if you don't send your federal taxes every paycheck, they're going to see that, lose money, and they're going to be like, what's going on? Why is everybody filing exempt? If they're filing exempt because we're not sending our money to you every paycheck until you fix these problems. So I'm going to, I know I sent you an image. I'm going to change it today for exempt for ACA, just in case. I'll have both. And I'm really, this is a message to the government that, hey, we pay you to do a job. You're not doing the job. And until you do the job, we're not going to pay you. And so I encourage people to take a bold stand and do something. So anyways, that's all I have to say. I love you. And I'll send you the image later in the chat.
I appreciate you, friend. Talk to you later.
Thanks so much. All right. Bye-bye.
See ya. All right. Bye. Listen, I understand, and this may surprise a lot of you because I'm not taking a stance in support of the Democrats that did this. I'm just trying to find out, what do we do? How do we solve this problem? Republicans have made it very clear they don't give a fuck about the middle class. They don't care about the poor. They don't care about the working poor. They don't care about children. They don't care about the disabled. They don't care about the elderly. They don't care about veterans. They don't care about any of it. Like I've said before, empathy, right? Empathy is something that they don't have. So in an attempt to try to figure out a way to help people, what do you do? What do you do? Do you make sacrifices for the 42 million people that are going to have their SNAP benefits cut? Do you make sacrifices for the people who are on the ACA? Where is the line? This is what I'm trying to figure out. I was up all night thinking about this. I knew this may not be popular today, which is fine. I can take that. I have no problem. You guys are the smartest chat on TikTok. And Jen's right. You can critically think through these things. What I'm trying to find is, what are the alternatives? People say we should just continue to hold out. To what end? So we hold out for 3 months, the ACA subsidies expire, and then in 3 months' time we say, okay, we'll vote now. What does that accomplish? I'm just trying to figure out what we can do in the meantime. How do we get this across the finish line? And what are the alternatives if we don't? So I'm just going to bring random people up today. I'm going to be asking that question, like, what is the alternative? What do we do? I know people are angry today. I get it. Your anger should be at the people who caused this to begin with, and that would be Republicans for gutting healthcare, for not being willing to extend the ACA subsidies, for denying WIC payments, for denying SNAP payments. That's where your anger should be focused on, right? That's it. That's where your anger should be focused, not on anything else other than that. That's my hope, okay? Good morning, Timmy. How are you today?
I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
Doing fine, thank you. What's on your mind?
But I've got a slightly different take on it than I think a lot of other people do, which is that I think we've had this dynamic inside of our society where there is a large percentage of the population, which is the Republicans, that believe that if the Republicans were let to have their ideas come to fruition, that it would benefit everybody. I'm going to benefit everybody as a whole. And the thing is we've allowed the Democratic Party to hold them at bay, and not let these ideas come to fruition. And therefore, it allows them to continue to think these things would be good, And I think that we've kind of reached this point where we ought to just say, you know what, you can have whatever the fuck you want, and let's just see what happens, and just let everything fall apart. Let all the poor people inside of Mississippi and Alabama and so forth that rely upon the ACA but don't understand that it's Obamacare suddenly lose all their benefits. Let all of the farms go bankrupt. Let everybody just let things fall apart so that it's demonstrable how bad these ideas are. Maybe it's not a good idea to keep them at bay anymore. And I realize that it sucks for a lot of people, but this cycle is just persisting, and I'm kind of curious as to what your thoughts are on that.
Again, it's the same question I ask. What's the alternative?
The alternative is in perpetuity having the Democrats trying to hold the Republicans at bay and having all these people that misunderstand things to the degree that they keep voting Republicans in, and it never resolves itself.
Right. So then when healthcare subsidies go up, if Republicans don't vote for it, those are
then
people that are represented.
Then everybody loses their healthcare, including Republicans. And then we deal with that. Then we deal with that then. And that might actually be a decent. Yeah, like, and that might be a decent.
Anyway.
Like, and that might be a decent first step to saying, you know what, like single pay is a good idea.
That's kind of the point, right? So that's leverage. So again, the overwhelming majority of people on the ACA are represented by Republicans in Congress and voted for Trump in 2024. So they're going to feel that. In fact, this 40-day stretch of time has exposed that. So this time in the messaging has been reminding Republican voters over and over and over and over and over and over again, if your ACA subsidies disappear, that's because of the people that you voted for. That's not going to change whether they pass this CR or not. That's still the case. That's still the reality. So
correct.
That's kind of my point. So people ask, like, what's the point of this whole thing? The entire argument the Democrats have been running on for 40 days has been your healthcare costs are about to go up, and Republicans have got to do something about it, and they do. So if they don't do anything about it, that burden falls on them.
Correct. I agree. And just let it happen.
It's going to happen is my point, right?
Yep.
It's going to happen. So that was going to happen on Saturday. It's going to happen today unless Republicans do something. If this CR gets passed, do we think funding SNAP for the next year, whether or not the government shuts down in January, is a good thing? I would say that's a good thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Would you say funding WIC is a good thing?
Yes, it is a good thing.
Right.
I guess the position I'm taking is stop fighting it. Stop complaining about it. Just let it happen. And then when everything falls apart, then you're in a much better place to go, see, fucking told you so.
Okay, that is an alternative, but that means, but how long does that continue for is my question. How long does that continue for? How long do federal employees who are expected to come to work not get paid? How long do people who depend on SNAP monthly not get their SNAP benefits? That's all I'm trying to say. There has to be a solution here, and I don't expect to see a solution for Republicans because they don't give a shit. So then. And again, we have to be careful as somebody of privilege. I don't depend on SNAP, but I know people do. I'm not a federal employee. I have a small business. If my business is, my pay is dependent on what I do. I'm not beholden to the government to pay me as a federal employee. I've not lost my job under unconstitutional conditions. So I'm just trying to find alternatives here. But I appreciate you jumping in today, Timmy. Thanks for being here. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
See you later. Bye. This is a tough topic, guys, but this is why this is all the conversations that we've had collectively in this space, because you guys are the smartest chat on TikTok. That's why this conversation is made for you all, because we're trying to find solutions here. Brandalion, how are you today?
Hi, I am good. I just want to say I disagree with the last caller. I think we have to fight. I think if we let them do everything they want to, we won't have a democracy. They'll just take.
That's what he was saying, away. Though. But I think that's what he was saying.
Sure, but I feel like we would never be able to come back from it. The people that have money and power, they already have so much of it. I don't think that we could come back if we gave them more. If we let them pass all their policies, it would there would be no coming back from it.
Okay, so but they've already passed the big beautiful bill, right? So that's already in play, and part of that was gutting Medicaid and Medicare, not extending the ACA tax credits, gutting SNAP, gutting WIC. That's already law, right? So what do we do? I guess what do we do now is the question. Like, what is the alternative?
I mean, I think we have to show up to vote while we can and take a lot of these longstanding Democrats out of their seats and replace them. I think that's going to take time, but I think that if we just allow the Republicans to pass everything on their agenda, it gets so much worse. I really think that they want an authoritarian state farther than what they're pushing for right now, and I just think that we wouldn't be able to climb out of it if we truly allowed them to do everything that they wanted.
Yeah, so your argument is that more people need to turn out to vote?
I think we need to turn out to vote. I think we need to reach out to our communities. I think we need to push education on economics and politics. I think we have to take that upon ourselves because, I mean, that our kids aren't getting educated on it very well, and all the different views on the internet, you could easily get swayed in a wrong direction.
That's a big picture. I totally agree with you. That's a whole different conversation, but I don't disagree with that. But in the short term, this has to end somehow, some way. And what I'm trying to find is, how do we do this? Because at some point, people are going to get harmed. The question is, who gets harmed and how much harm are we willing to accept? So, but thank you for being here today, Brandeline. I appreciate you very much.
Thank you.
You got it. See you later. I get it. This is one of those conversations. Like I said, I feel like we can have this conversation because you guys are the smartest chat on TikTok. I don't expect people to agree with me. And to be honest, I'm not really making an argument one way or another. I want people to get their jobs back. Absolutely. I want SNAP to be funded. I want WIC to be funded. I want healthcare. What I'm trying to figure out here is, what do we do? Because Republicans are not going to move on this. They're never going to tear up this filibuster, even though Trump's been telling them to. They've never offered a healthcare solution. So what happens? What do we do? Friends, it's 8 Democrats. It's not the entire Democratic Party. It's 8. Your anger has got to be directed at the Republicans who caused this to begin with. Primary the shit out of those 8. I completely fucking agree. In fact, primary every one of them. I want progressives in office. I want progressives in office. So this is another argument for universal health care. Because if we had that, you're right, Sabrina. If we had that, then we wouldn't be fighting about this. The message here is that Trump was okay with children starving. Exactly. So if you don't want kids to starve, SNAP has to get funded. If you want federal employees to get their jobs back, and for the TSA to get paid, and for military families to get paid, and for veterans to get paid, then there's got to be some compromise. In a bicameral government, that's what it takes. The expectation is that the Democrats, don't forget, on Friday, I think Chuck Schumer introduced a standalone bill that said, listen, you agree to extend the ACA subsidies and we'll agree to open the government. And the Republicans said no. So what has to happen? That's what I'm trying to find. Today's going to be a weird day, but that's why we do this.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning. How are you? What should I call you?
Ooh, you could call me Atropos.
Atropos. Good morning. How are you?
Oh, I am so livid about this whole thing. So livid. And I guess, to jump in and answer your question, I think that there are 2 things they could have done strategically to at least stretch this out and create a more symbolic impact, which would have been to, at a minimum, have this last through December 2nd so that we could see what happens in the special election in Tennessee. I think that was going to continue setting the tone. From there, I think it would have been imperative to show the American people throughout the holiday season that this was still going to go until the bitter end. Because realistically, from my perspective, I worked as a therapist with many a family in the court system that had sociopathic, psychopathic parents. And these people are sadistic. They are the people who are going to ignore the needs of the child, ignore the needs of everybody, and all that you can do is be that person with them in order to stop them. Like Trump, first of all, what upsets me, and I'm sorry to rant for a second, but what really upsets me is that this is such an unfortunate win for Trump as a person who prides himself on making deals and winning at deals. I think that is, first of all, such a horrible message he now gets to send to his voter base. See, I saved you. We saved you through this deal.
But he hasn't won anything yet because there's been no vote yet. So that has not happened yet. It still has to go back to the House. So there's no win yet. I hear what you're saying, but there's no win yet. There's nothing he can claim.
However, through the holidays, though, I think it would have been imperative for him to continue looking like the bad guy that he is. And I think that, it was only going to be if there was this colossal impact through the holiday season that people would have really seen this as, oh my God, we can't do this. Also, I personally think that the Democrats could have literally waited until the clock struck midnight in the new year. They could have literally waited till the bitter end. And I would imagine that someone who is so skilled in these tactics, negotiations to really screw people, they do fold at some point. They do fold. And we just won these elections. I don't understand why this was the tactical move instead of at least in a month.
Because the ACA subsidies are going to expire on midnight on January 1st.
That's what I'm saying.
I know, but that has, I hear you. And I'm just playing contrarian for this conversation. That has to happen. There has to be a vote. And the only way that vote can happen would be with Republicans to vote for it. Right. So there's got to be some pressure on them. And I think that there was no pressure up until yesterday. They were just like, no, we're not going to do that. They said, we're not going to do it. Now they've gone on the record saying part of this negotiation was we agreed to hold a vote. Doesn't mean it's going to pass. But again, I'm putting my political science hat on for this conversation, right? That's a political move that advantage Democrats because it forces Republicans to vote against healthcare extensions for their voters.
I don't mean to be a negative Nancy because I am not.
You're not being negative.
Well, I want to say that, and for the 2,000 people listening right now, I don't mean to be negative Nancy. I don't mean to make it seem like, we should definitely just completely give up on the Democratic Party as a whole now. But I think that there's been a very proven track record at this point that even with an oversight committee, there is no accountability. So for them to be on record saying they're going to create a document, even though they've had a month to create said document and have not created said document, that doesn't look good. What?
Yeah. They've had 10 years to solve the healthcare problem.
And that's the point is like, if they've already stripped people out of their SNAP benefits, out of their Medicaid, they're already willing to do that and keep it that way. We've already capitulated. So at this point, if we continue capitulating, let alone the premiums going up, right? Like that's already a thing. But if we, continue in this way of just saying, yeah, we'll take you at your word, I don't see how that's going to result in any sort of accountability if they don't keep their word.
I don't think it's that we're going to take them at their word. I think what it does is it shows their voters, who are, again, the largest percentage of recipients on the ACA, and their voters who are the largest recipients of Medicare welfare programs, SNAP benefits across the board. It puts the burden on them to solve that problem for their voters. And if they don't give a shit, they don't give a shit. Politically, you run on it.
Can I give an analogy that reminds me of? And then I'll obviously,
Sure.
I want you to be able to get on to other guests as well. But it
Sure,
reminds me of a, kind of a domestic violence situation where you have this, let's say, patriarchal figure that is doing the abuse. You have the parent alongside them that is watching and capitulating to the abuse. Even if that person tries to then hold them accountable and do something about it, any which way that they negotiate and allow that person to have any control in the future is incredibly problematic to the family unit, right?
That's reasonable. That's a very reasonable take. That's a very reasonable take.
That's how I see the Dems right now, as the parent who's allowing the abuse to continue because they're just trying to make at least some of it stop.
Let's be clear, though, the 8 Dems, because the majority of the party is against this. So it's eight Democrats that are doing this, right?
And everybody, don't forget.
We have to keep that in mind.
Yeah, and don't forget John Ossoff was one of them, which is such a disappointment. Wow.
No, he didn't vote. No, he was.
Oh, really?
He didn't vote.
I saw he was on the list. Nope. Oh, well, that's a relief.
Nope, he was not one. No, he was not one. It's Hassan and Shaheen from New Hampshire. It's Fetterman. It's Tim Kaine. It's both senators from Virginia, and Angus King from Maine.
For sure.
So yeah, it wasn't. My Peter Welch, a senator from Vermont, was initially part of that negotiation, but he did not vote for it. So Ossoff was not on the list.
All right. Yeah. Well, I just hope that in general, people get to continue being upset about it because they should be upset with, Dems caving the way that they did in general, but also not let it overshadow and sour their mouth when it comes to Dems in general at the midterms. Because realistically, like, obviously this was strategic. All of these people are on the way out of, retirement from their seats anyway. So they're not super concerned about the midterms. That's all good and fine. But people, like, it's like, what a souring moment, after all that momentum. So, but thanks for hearing me out.
Sure thing. Appreciate it. Have a good day. Be safe out there.
You too.
Yeah, I mean, again, valid points. What I'm trying to find here, and maybe I'm not doing a good job of it, which is all right. I can take that. What is the alternative? How far does this go? And again, I'll remind people, it is 8 senators. The majority of the people elected in Congress are opposed to doing this, right? That the majority of Democratic senators and Democrats in the House are opposed to this. It doesn't change the fact, right? It doesn't change the fact that those healthcare subsidies are going to expire at the end of the year. That doesn't change. I don't mean to be a broken record here, but the overwhelming people who are enrolled in the ACA are represented by Republicans in Congress. It's going to have effect. Exactly. It's starve now or starve later. I mean, kind of. I don't mean it to make it that harsh, but that's one of the situations that we're now dealing with, right? By the way, there's apparently Trump is going to pardon Rudy Giuliani and others, Sidney Powell and others. That's cool. Michael, how are you this morning?
I'm all right, Facts. I don't know, just came up to give a little bit of my 2 cents.
Sure.
It's, it's kind of intimidating to admit, where I am in life right now. I am a current SNAP benefit receiver, and I have mixed emotions on this topic. Mm-hmm. The way I saw it was the Republicans aren't going to barter in fairness. So as a recipient of SNAP, I was willing to take the pain because either way you look at it, it was a poison pill. Either A, people didn't receive food, or B, people died because they don't get health care. I apologize about the DIE word.
It's all right. No problem. I get it.
So there are some benefits of opening up, and I do realize that. That's where the mixed emotions come from, because I understand if you're a federal employee and you're struggling, that it's hard to look at the optics. All you're thinking is, I want to get back to work and make sure my bills are paid. And I mean, so that's a good thing. But like I said, I don't think that the Republicans are going to negotiate in good faith on this.
I don't either. And I think that's kind of that's the political argument, that they're likely not going to do that. If they do that and they extend the ACA subsidies, keep in mind, that's what the Democrats are holding out for. So that would be a good thing. If they don't do that, then it puts the burden on them to explain to their voters that they did not extend their ACA subsidies. So from a political perspective, again, strategically speaking, that's a win. I know it may not seem like that, but this is why you guys are the smartest chat on TikTok. That's a political win. And
you can drop me off of that, but after I make one more statement,
sure.
I just want to address the person in the comments that said, "Oh, this lady just wants to starve, feeding children." I did not get that point from the last guest.
No, I didn't either. But Michael, thanks for jumping in today. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
You got it. See you later. You got to look at everything here, right? And I think you brought up a really, really good point. It's either healthcare or SNAP and WIC, right? I get it. I understand. It's like Sophie's Choice, right? It's a horrible position to be in. But when you have the president, right? I got you, Crow. When you have the president literally going to court saying, I don't want to pay people. I don't want to give people their SNAP benefits. What's the amount? Like $180? Like, I don't get it, Chris. Okay, I think I do get it. Okay, and again, I'm not here. I'm just trying to talk about what we're looking for alternatives. Hey, Crow, how are you?
Hey, morning, brother. For the 2.3 thousand people in here, if you're a SNAP recipient in PA, I do have an update for you. I just got into the office. I just clocked into work myself, and I'm staring at an email. It looks like Friday night we were able to start issuing full payments temporarily. We were able to issue a one-time issuance payments for all clients from October 16th through November 6th. This would cover new applicants, people that had like a reconsideration done, people that had to have an adjustment done, like maybe we underpaid them, we noticed and we wanted to give them the correct amount. And for ongoing cases, people that didn't have a one-time issuance, we were able to issue full payments for case numbers ending in 1 or 2. So if you have a case ending in 1 or 2, you received your full SNAP benefit. If you're one of the other 8 numbers, unfortunately, while they were in the process of doing those payments, the injunction came through, and we had to freeze the other 8 numbers.
Yeah.
That's it. That's how SNAP works here in PA. Everybody's data set based on their last case, the last number of their case.
Now I know that Pennsylvania is one of those states that tends to have a surplus when it comes to federal funding. They're a blue state. They provide funding to the federal government more than they receive. Am I correct about that, Crow?
Yeah, but that's very region specific, to be perfectly honest. Like Pennsylvania,
sure.
Because like if you're talking about my area, you're talking about Philadelphia, you're talking about Pittsburgh. Yeah, we tend to provide a ton more. But like if we're talking about like rural Pennsylvania, then they don't. I think when you look at the numbers, Pennsylvania as a state winds up being a push.
Okay, a push. There you go. So again, from a political perspective, the burden then falls to, as the Republicans have been claiming for a very long time, states' rights, let the state takes care of it. Red states are recipients. They are recipient states. Blue states, by and large, are donor states, which means if the burden then gets passed to red states to fund these programs, they're already upside down in their budget. They can't fund these programs. There is no money there to do it.
I need to be clear, like, because there are people in red states saying I didn't get my stuff. There's a reason for that. This goes back to a previous ruling. If you remember the injunction on immigration, there was that ruling that said cases can only be applied to the states that filed the case, not nationally. So what we saw released over the weekend were the 25 states that filed that initial lawsuit because they weren't able to do a national a policy change because of that prior ruling about injunctions.
Okay. So that, again, kind of proved my point, right? The states that are going to be harmed are already the ones that have the highest rates of poverty, the highest rates of maternal mortality, the highest rates of infant mortality, have some of the worst healthcare outcomes, have some of the worst education outcomes. Again, these states are the ones that are going to be harmed the most, like in most cases. So. But thank you for that update, buddy.
Yeah, no problem. I just wanted to come up because I know, like, with the amount of people you have here, you likely have a handful of Pennsylvanians that require my services.
I'm sure. And thank you for everything you do. You want to plug Lighthouse while you're here?
Yeah, so I do run an organization now. You can find at needhasnoparty.org. What I seek to do there is connect people that work, do the kind of work that I do, because I work in social programs myself. I'm actually there right now. And people that need our services, and this is everything from SNAP to Medicaid to VA to we have victims advocates there. If you're under a DV situation, we have pet resources. Pretty much, if somebody does a public facing job and wants to continue that work in their free time, this is a space for you to help more people. And if you're a person that needs help, this is a place for you to come to help. And if you're, and I say this every time, it's very important. If you're somebody in chat that's on the other side, and you're like, I need help, but I'm too proud to say it. I don't think they'll like me because like of how I voted. There's a reason the website is needhasnoparty.org, because the goal of the Lighthouse is to help people. I don't care who you voted for. We hold the same standard we do in our day jobs, which is when you apply for SNAP, I don't have to ask you who you voted for. So in the Lighthouse, the same thing applies. We have both public areas for general questions, and then I have a private ticket system, so you don't have to worry about like being judged by others or putting your information out there. We have a way for you to contact people that work in these organizations privately, so you can feel comfortable and safe. When you go to needhasnoparty.org, not only will you find a link to the Discord server, you'll also find some flyers that will have a little QR code on it. It also has the website on it. You can print those out. You can put them wherever you need to put them in your city, because like the answer to the question of can I share this with blah is yes. Share it with your neighbor, share it with your friend, share it with your dog, share it with the homeless shelter down the street. You share it with everybody. That's the purpose. And for those of you that just like having nice things to wear, there is now also a sweatshirt on the site that has the QR code for the site right on the sleeve, so you can also wear it.
And the link to that website is in the link tree that's in my bio. By the way. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate you very much. See you later. Be safe out there doing the work. This is a tough conversation, guys. I mean, this is a hard conversation, and again, I want you to challenge the conversations that we're having here. That's my expectation. I have no expectation that people are going to agree with me. And to be honest, I'm not making a stand on this. I am just saying this has to resolve itself. It's got to be taken care of. And from my perspective, I'm literally just putting my political hat on. I think there are more pros involved in this than there are cons. If it were my way and we had 2 more months or 3 months until the ACA subsidies expired, I'd say keep holding out. But they expire in 45 days or less than that, 50 days, whatever the number is, 40 days at the end of the year. People are going to get harmed at the end of the day, right? People are going to get harmed. I think people going back to work and getting paid, I think people getting hired back who got fired with full back pay is a good thing. I think SNAP and WIC being funded for the year, even if the government does shut down again in January, I think that's a good thing. I think the fact that the president will no longer be able to fire federal employees indiscriminately, I think that's a good thing. I think those are good things. We didn't have those things yesterday. We potentially have those things now. Question is, what's the House going to do? Mike Johnson has made it very clear, although the hypocrisy from him, he's saying, oh yeah, we'll absolutely negotiate. We'll negotiate on the ACA subsidies. Just open the government. So now the government's open, potentially. It's not open yet. Still got to vote for it. What's he going to do? Does that mean that we get Rep. Grijalva sworn in? Yeah, she's going to have to be sworn in because they can't vote unless they can't open the House. She has to get sworn in. That would have to happen. So it's all these things, right? It's just like, no, it's not about, again, I get it. I understand. I truly, truly do understand. I get why people feel frustrated. I get it. I totally understand. I'm looking for alternatives. Like, how far should we go? Woody Kitty, how are you this morning?
I'm conflicted.
Me too.
I'm a person that depends on Medicaid to survive. I have lupus and epilepsy. And without Medicaid, I can't afford my meds or my hospital visits. And I understand. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Hang in there. We got you.
I understand that people need fed. I do. And I understand that people need paid. I do. I truly do. And I don't want people to go hungry, but I also don't want people to go without their health care. And I don't know what the answer is. I don't. But I don't trust the Republicans to do anything to help us.
Me neither.
And I feel so defeated.
Again.
I don't know, this feels really scary. And all I can think about is are these people on Medicaid that are potentially going to get kicked off, and people that won't be able to afford their health care in general, the other plans and stuff. And I I'm very, very conflicted because I know that people need to eat, but I also know that we were helping each other. People were opening food pantries in their yards. I don't know. What do you?
Get it? I know. I feel this. I feel the same way. I understand. I don't. I want to make it clear that we can't make any changes to the healthcare system unless the Republicans agree.
Yeah.
They have to. That's not change. That's no different today than it was yesterday, than it was a month ago, than it was a year ago. That's not changed. They have to be willing to negotiate on extending the ACA subsidies and peeling back, replacing some of the money that they cut from Medicaid, Medicare programs. So
Yeah.
this is a Sophie's choice kind of thing. Democrats cannot do it without Republicans.
Yeah.
And in the Senate, Republicans can't do it without Democrats. And
I know they weren't negotiating with the government closed.
They were negotiating. Exactly. They chose not to negotiate. So again, what's the alternative?
Yeah, they put us in a rock
That's all I'm
and a
trying
hard
to say.
place.
They did. This is kind of a Sophie's choice thing. I hate to use that term, but I think it applies here, right?
Yeah, I just feel like I haven't taken a full breath since he got elected.
I hear you. Are you on our Discord, Witty Kitty?
No, I am not right now because I before I couldn't subscribe, so no, I'm not.
One of our, I can guarantee you'll get reached out by one of our mods. Let's get you in the Discord because there's all kinds of resources that are available there to help, whether it be through the Lighthouse or whether it be through the just mutual aid. But there's a community we've created, and we've been able to help a lot of people. So it's just maybe consider joining.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll let somebody else come up. Because I don't really know what to say. I'm at a loss for words, honestly.
I get it. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
And thank you
very
for
much.
all the gifts, guys. I appreciate it.
That's what we do here. Hang in there, Witty Kitty. We'll speak soon. Okay. Thank you for being here. Have a good day. All right.
Bye.
I get it. I get it. And there is no perfect solution to this. There is none. I mean, we even have disagreement in our mod chat, which is fine, right? Which is fine. I don't know what the solution is here. Now we can easily say, and I just want to remind everybody, we're talking about 8 moderate conservative Democrats. It's not the entire party. In fact, the overwhelming majority of the party is opposed to this move. Overwhelming. The enemy needs to continue to be, well, the corporate oligarchs, for one, and the party that supports them. That's the Republican Party. We would not be here if they had not gutted Medicaid, Medicare. We would not be here if they hadn't refused to extend the subsidies for the ACA. We wouldn't be here if they were gutting funding from SNAP and WIC and programs like that and supporting federal employees getting fired indiscriminately and not paying essential workers and not paying the military, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We would not be here. This is purely politics. Over the last 40 days, the information about who's on the ACA has been exposed. The information about who would be harmed the most if the programs weren't extended, if the subsidies weren't extended. The people that are on Medicaid and Medicare, the overwhelming majority of people who are on welfare programs and subsidy programs and government assistance live in red states. That is the issue. I know people are angry, and I get it. I completely understand, and I'm glad you're angry. That means you're involved. That means you're connected to these kinds of things. The anger has to go at the people who created this to begin with, and that's the Republican Party. And if you want to go after those moderate Democrats, then go after them. Demand that they be primaried. Ask them why they voted for this. As a reminder, there are 2 or 3. I think Tim Kaine is one. I think both senators from New Hampshire and both senators from Nevada have been told that they're paying attention to what people are saying. The vote yesterday was simply to end cloture, which means that the next step would then be to go to a full floor vote. Republicans still need Democrats. And by the way, there's rumblings within the Republican caucus in the Senate that they're not going to vote for it either. So what have we gained? What we've gained is putting Republicans on blast. You said you would address health care. Are they going to? I doubt it. I doubt it. So what have we gained? We've gained more exposure for them being the cruel, just cowardice people that they are. Okay? I love this conversation. It's necessary. Hi, Michelle.
Hey, Steve.
How you doing?
I've been better. I'm really conflicted about everything that's going on right now. Because on the one hand, I completely understand where you're coming from. And I agree, these people need to eat. These people need to get paid. And on the other hand, I am literally physically raising a disabled child by myself who fully depends on the system that they are trying to gut and that they are actively gutting. His feeding supplies, his medications, his diapers, everything, his equipment. I don't know where we're gonna go with this. I like the last guest, Witty Kitty, I have been literally feeling like I can't catch a breath since this administration has come back. I've been fighting with my MAGA family regularly, and what I've seen from them is that they don't see the effects of what's going on because it's not personally hitting them. It's not personally affecting them, so they don't give two shits about what's going on to other people. And I think you're asking the wrong question because we don't have an answer to what next, what if, what then. There is no answer to it, but I did see, though, over the last couple weeks, which made my heart happy as an empath, that when they cut the benefits, people in the communities came out and they were there for our community members. We were there. We did what we had to do. So in my mind, what was all of this for the last 40 days? If not for anything, we should have held our ground and continued to show up for our community members and fight, because in the long haul, I don't know, the medical system is, we need something. We need something to take care of our loved ones and ourselves, and I'm conflicted. I don't know where we go from here, I'm literally physically, financially, everything, raising two special needs children, one of which is physically disabled and can't do anything for himself, and we fully depend on the system for him. I don't know what to feel or where to go from here. I'm so frustrated.
I get it. I understand. I am too. First of all, hearts in the chat for you for just being the amazing person that you are, and I'm so grateful to call you a friend. I get it. I understand, and I'm not trying. I don't mean, and I hope it's not coming across as me being insensitive to the situation you're going through. I'm just trying to figure out how this ends, and I don't see the Republicans budging on this at all. I just don't see them budging, and then it's just going to get worse, because if there's no vote to extend ACA subsidies and or put money back to Medicare at the end of the year, then you and your family are the ones that are going to suffer. And I just don't see Republican movement on that. I understand that, the politics aside, like, you don't give a fuck about the politics. You want to be able to take care of your kids. I get that. But at some point, maybe shame is the only way to do this. I don't know.
Right. And I agree with you there. And the way that I see it personally, and I was talking with John a little bit about it last night, but Republicans are never going to see it. They're never going to have a heart. They never have. So the only way that we can hit them is their pocketbook and the people who support them. And the only way to do that is to dry out the funds that their people depend on to get them desperate enough to say, you know what, we've had enough. You've done nothing for us. It's showing now. It's personally affecting me now. So we're done with you. I feel like that's the only way we're going to get some sort of movement, because they keep backpedaling and they keep pushing bullshit. And I don't know. But the empath in me is like, that is so morally bankrupt to think like that. But if we don't start thinking like they do, what have we got? Because their messaging is so much better than Democrats. And I don't know. I just feel like at this point we have to play their game. And unfortunately, way too many people are pawns in this game of theirs. And I'm fed up with it. And I agree with you. We need to blow up the system, gut it, and start fresh. But how do we get there? Is this how we get there? Do we sacrifice our own? Do we sacrifice others to get to that point? How do we get there?
That's the question, right? Because, there's however and whenever this is resolved, some large chunk of our population is going to be harmed. There's no denying that, right? There's going to be collateral damage. There's no denying that. And I think that we have to ask ourselves the hard questions. Where are those sacrifices going to be? Is it going to be food? Is it going to be people's livelihood? Is it going to be healthcare? Because something is not going. Some people in those categories, of those distinct categories, are not going to be taken care of. Plain and simple.
Exactly.
I don't have an answer to that. I don't have an answer for that, and I can't.
Right.
And as a white man of privilege, I can't make that argument for anybody. I'm just here to try to point it out.
Yeah, no, I hear you, and I completely understand your position on it, and the confliction is there, the anger is there, and I think I speak for so many, in my situation, and not like, what did we do all of this for the last 41 days? If not to hold the line and say, you know what, we're not going to give in to Republicans like we always do. Let's fight harder. Let's continue showing up for our constituents and our community members and not constituents, community members. Because it really pleased my heart. It just made my heart so happy to see so many people come together and do what they could in their own privilege and their, to give back to the communities. And I truly feel like humanity is not completely lost. And if that's what we have to do to hold out and get real change, then we might have to sacrifice a little bit to do that. But the healthcare system is imperative for so many Americans right now, and so many people that I personally know. I mean, as much as my dad is a moron for voting the way he does, he 100% depends on the socialist programs that he is on, and he doesn't get he just doesn't understand what he's voting against. It's so frustrating.
While you're up here, how about a little good news?
Yes.
The Supreme Court today declined an opportunity to overturn its landmark precedent recognizing a constitutional right to same-sex marriage, tossing aside an appeal that had roiled LGBTQ advocates who feared the conservative court might be ready to revisit the decade-old decision. Instead, the court denied an appeal from Kim Davis, the former Kentucky County Clerk, who now faces hundreds of thousands of dollars in damages and legal fees for refusing to issue marriage licenses after the court's decision in Obergefell v. Hodges allowed same-sex couples to marry. The court did not explain its reasoning to deny the appeal, which had received outsized attention, in part because the court's 6-3 conservative majority 3 years ago overturned Roe and the constitutional right to abortion that the 1973 decision established. Since then, fears about Obergefell being the precedent to fall have grown. So that is a massive decision in support
Fantastic.
Of love.
Fantastic win. Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
I was worried
Agreed.
about that too.
Me too. Yeah, me too.
That's great. We just have to keep going. We have to keep fighting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
As
I agree.
You and I being the white privileged people in this chat,
That's right.
we have to keep
That's
fighting
right.
for those that are underprivileged and don't have the resources and access that we do. That's wonderful.
Thank you for being here. Let's talk later, okay?
Okay. Thank you, Steve. Love you.
I appreciate you. See you later. Love you too. See you later. It's really good news. Right, that's really good news. Obviously, the fact that we even have to debate who we're supposed to love in this nation is just mind-boggling to me. But everybody, thank you for being here. Continue to like and share the live. If you're just joining us, I appreciate you all. We're live Monday through Friday, 8 till noon Eastern time, right here. I'm Facts. You can also call me Steve. As we know that there was a decision made yesterday in the Senate where 8 Democratic senators joined with others to push cloture to end debate on the continuing resolution. They offered a few things to say we would like we're willing to fund the government through the end of January. We would like all people who were fired by the Trump administration starting October 1st under their RIF, under their Project 2025 agenda, to be given their jobs back and to have back pay. And no more firings can happen. We would also like you to make sure that you're funding SNAP and WIC for the next year, whether or not the government shuts down in January, because what they're proposing, this stopgap, would only fund the government through the end of January. And Republicans agreed to hold a vote on the ACA. Sure, it's a pinky promise. I get it. Whatever that might be, but it is that's what we're negotiating. The next step in that process would be for that bill to pass. That vote is, I don't think there's a vote scheduled for today, so it likely would be tomorrow, and then it would have to go back to the House, and I don't think the House is going to move on it at all. So again, this is politics. This is politics. So that's where we sit. Everybody keep tapping. We're crowdfunded here. You want to support the channel, you can do so at Factsstillmatter. I appreciate it. Morgan, how are you today?
I'm good, Steve. Thank you so much. I want to offer what I've been thinking about is I'm in Virginia, and obviously Tim Kaine was one of the Democrats that sided, but I'm looking at it a little bit differently because I come from southwestern Virginia, which is like I'm right on the Kentucky line, where it's completely MAGA. I mean, I am one blue dot in nothing but MAGA land. And to me, I'm kind of looking at it as these are the people that's most affected by losing their EBT, things like that. But I'm wondering, is there a strategy behind this? Is Tim Kaine, as a Democrat, stepping in or changed or agreed because maybe he understands that Southwest Virginia will potentially look at this as, wow, a Democrat stepped up and could potentially change the mind of complete Trump land. And maybe it might make them think, wow, a Democrat stepped up. Can we sway now the vote in this predominantly never changing red region and potentially work something like that out? I mean, I don't know. I think also in the chat, I'm seeing so much, and I'm affected deeply by this myself, deeply, but I'm not going to crash out like MAGA does, if that makes sense. I think we need to, I know things are emotional. I potentially am going to, I was diagnosed with a potentially terminal illness. I've been bedridden for the last 4 months, but I care more about the collective. I want to make sure that everybody has what they need. So I'm just looking at it narrowly. In other words, I'm looking at it as the state that I reside in and the area I reside in. And this could be a good opportunity for Democrats, the very small amount we have in this area, to kind of point out some things. Because I have tried, Steve, believe me, I have tried to talk to these people, and they will cut their nose off to spite their own face. You know, keep voting for people like Trump. And they will believe every single thing that this man says. There's no talking to them. They will not. You cannot have a conversation like that. I have done it so many times, and I've given up with trying to have an intellectual dialogue with people that, and these are my people. This is my family. This is a community. I'm almost 50 years old. In the Appalachian Mountains, we lack so much. There's no jobs. Education in this area it's laughable. And so I want to see, maybe, can we use this?
I think that's part of it. That's the kind of the argument that I've taken. Not so much for MAGA voters, my friend, but more for independents and for non-voters, for people who are impacted in these states who may not necessarily participate and wanting to understand why. And I just saw my friend Monica just post this in the chat. I sort of see this as like, this is a bit of a pause. People could get paid, people could get their job back, because we still have to figure out the healthcare issue. That still has to get resolved. And we need Republicans to do it, unless we have a 60-seat majority in the Senate, unless we take control of the Senate and we can blow up the filibuster ourselves and we can pass universal health care. That still has to get resolved. Nothing has changed from yesterday to today. That still has to get resolved. So again, people are going to get harmed. There's no way around that. It still has to get resolved. And again, for my political hat, this puts pressure on Republicans, because they're going to have to answer to their voters if they don't solve the healthcare issue. They can blame it on Democrats all they want, but they're not in charge. They're going to have to. There's no way they can spin out of this. There's literally no way. They've been backed into a corner, and now they're going to have to deliver the goods. And it's not just give people the money and let them buy their own health care. That's not a solution. It's still going to impact them much more than it's going to impact Democratic voters. Messaging, people like myself, other independent journalists, have to continue to remind people that the reason that we don't have a solution to the ACA subsidies is not because of Democrats, it's because of Republicans. Thank you for jumping in today, friend. I appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. I appreciate it.
You got it. You got it. See you later. I don't want people to lose sight of that. Now, we can certainly point fingers at the eight Democrats who in this case voted along with the Republicans. I get that. We can certainly do that. But we have to turn our energy and our anger at the people who brought us here to begin with. And that would be the Republican Party. It is them. It's not Democrats. It is them. They are the ones that cut Medicaid, Medicare. They are the ones that cut SNAP. They are the ones that didn't want to vote on extending the ACAs. They are the ones that supported firing federal workers. They are the ones that voted to support a reduction in force. They are the ones that are keeping the Epstein files secret. It's them. It's them. They are the ones that did this. It's them. Don't lose sight of that. Those are the people who did this. Okay? Let's keep that in mind. Let's not forget that. The fight is not over, because we still have to solve the healthcare issue. We still have to solve the healthcare issue for people like Michelle and people like our friend Morning who are life and death. We still have to solve that issue. I just don't know. I don't know an alternative, because at some point over time, people are going to be harmed. We can't fix that. I don't have an answer to that. I don't have a solution for it, other than we have to put the pressure on the people who are responsible, and that would be the Republicans. That's it. So when the ACA was, somebody asked me earlier, right, what's been the point of this? Well, if the Democrats had agreed out of the gate on day one to just agree, then the people would not know the impact of the ACA subsidies. They would not know that their premiums are going up because the Republicans don't want to vote for it. They know that. They know that. And now they do. Now they're aware. And now the Republicans are on the record saying, we have to solve this. Good luck. Cool Cat, how are you this morning?
Good morning, sir. I wanted to just say a few things. I realize, there's a lot I wanted to go over, but people already mentioned them. My opinion in this whole situation, I realize when Democrats are motivated, when we show a little bit of spine, people show out, people vote. And this last election prove you that, we were, actually feeling like we were up to something. I'm looking at the bigger picture. I'm looking at, yes, people have to eat. We all know that. We want people to eat. We want people to, for a month. Yeah. I'm looking at, can we survive this for 4 years? I'm looking at this less, midterm election. Right now, how are people going to feel? What is the motivation? The only little fight we had in us right now, the little fire just burn. And we've been following you for a minute. Yes, you say you don't have a stand. I actually understand. I watch you, but clearly there's a switch. I don't understand how suddenly people think this is a good idea. How is this a good idea? That's going to put people to a corner now to where they're not going to go in to come out. Messaging. Democratic, we're not good in messaging. We don't know how to communicate. You know that. Democrats, we're bad when it comes to messaging. And so I'm worried now. People gonna feel like we caved. People gonna feel like, we always look weak. That's the story with Democrats. Republicans always come out strong. And they're gonna use this. They already started using this to show like they are the one who's starving kids. We know that. And their own people are the one who needs this help. Well, like this last lady was saying, let them starve, because they're not gonna, unless it affects them, unless they start feeling the pain, they are in a court. Nothing can change their mind unless they start feeling the burn. And yes, whenever something like this has to happen, people have to first suffer. We're gonna have to suffer in order for us to save the remaining 2 or 3 years left. Because if we lost the midterm, what is going to be left of America? Look at the whole country as a whole. Can we survive this for the next 3-4 years? Can we really? And what kind of damage is going to be done? Because now, all the blame is going to put on Democrat. Our own people are going to blame us. Not realizing maybe we're trying to feed them for the holiday, for Thanksgiving. How about, after that? After Christmas? So we have to, when we show a little bit of spine, people are going to stand behind us. Yes, we're going to be suffering, but at least their own people are going to feel like they are suffering also. Maybe we might pull it off next term, for the midterm.
Yeah, well, you bring up a couple of interesting points about how Democrats are looking at, now people on the left are looking to blame or are going to check out. Right. And I encourage people to understand that it's still, the issue still needs to be resolved. And that issue is healthcare. Now, people showed up on Tuesday because of what they see from the Republican Party from a policy perspective. Sure, they blame Republicans for the shutdown, and they still do. The polls still blame the Republicans for this happening. That's not changed. That has not changed. What people need to do on the left now is to take a breath and be like, who the fuck is the enemy? The enemy are the corporate billionaires. The enemy is the wealthy, is the 1%er, and the enemy are the people who are responsible for giving the oligarchs the power that they have, and that is today's Republican Party. They're the enemy. That has not changed. Thank you for jumping in today, Cool Cat. I appreciate you being here, friend. Thanks a lot for being here. Appreciate you. Something I just wanted. Somebody in the chat said, if the government's open, why hasn't Rep. Grijalva been sworn in yet? The government is not open. The government is still shut down because there's not been a vote in the Senate to push this CR to the House. And when that happens, if that happens, because there's still debate as to whether that's going to happen, are there enough Republicans that are going to sign on to this? Because they all need to, right? So I don't know the answer there yet. And by the way, once the government reopens, precedent has already been set. If Speaker Mike Johnson refuses to swear in Adelita Grijalva, the newly elected representative from Arizona, 7th District, someone else will. In Powell v. McCormick, 1969, the Supreme Court ruled that a duly elected member cannot be denied their seat, meaning a judge could step in to administer the oath or order the House to allow it. In other words, once the government reopens, Johnson will no longer be able to act as gatekeeper. So that's coming. Thank you for that, Jess. So that's coming, right? I don't have an answer. I don't have an answer, and I'm not up here. All I'm up here is trying to say we got to figure this out because something has to happen. Cognitive, how are you this morning?
I'm doing great. Yourself?
Fine, thank you. What's on your mind?
Yeah, so I have a quick question. So, with my understanding, if the government were, or not if, but when the government does open, what is it that congressional and Senate Republicans stand to gain from this if this CR budget were to get passed in their favor? Because it seems like it would be a form of a political suicide. This will hurt their constituents within their respective districts or state.
Well, it will, because again, red states receive on a per capita basis and a percentage basis more federal programs, are subsidized by blue states. Therefore, red states have higher rates of crime, have higher rates of infant mortality, have higher rates of poverty, have more people per capita that are on federal programs, higher higher enrollee percentage on the ACA, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's not changed. That hasn't changed. That's been that way for a very, very long time. The issue is, what are Republicans willing to do to solve that problem for their voters? And they're not interested in doing that. We know that. So then the onus becomes on how do Democrats message to this? And I think something from the last 40 days that's been pretty obvious is that they've done a decent job saying, let's remind people that your health care, the affordability argument, your health care premiums are about to go up exponentially because Republicans don't want to vote to extend the tax credits. So Republicans don't gain anything other than a hypothetical win, a theoretical win, but they haven't gained anything. They haven't gained a thing, in my opinion.
Okay.
I'm not sure if that helps, but I don't think they've gained anything. In fact, I think they've lost because let me back up a second. I'm going to drop you down. Thanks for being here, friend. I appreciate you. I don't think they've gained anything. What they potentially can lose, if the messaging is right from the left, is to remind people again that if they don't vote to extend the subsidies, when your health care costs go up, it's because Republicans were not interested in solving the problem. That's the political side. I'm gonna take a little pause just briefly because I want to get to another story as it relates to this, and I promise I'll get back to the guests today. But there was on 60 Minutes last night, they were talking to farmers, and this relates to exactly what it is that we're talking about, because these things have not changed. Okay, healthcare is one component. SNAP benefits are one component. The economy is another component of the destruction to our, small d democratic institutions. So this interview happened last night with farmers. So I'm going to play some of this sound, then I'm going to take a quick break, and I'll be right back. as somebody who is, have got empathy to spare, I don't have empathy. Because they voted for that the first time and they voted for it again. And here we are, right? Here we are. Here we are. And this relates to what we're talking about today, that there is absolutely no respect for the middle class in our country from today's GOP. None. None. You heard it. I think he's a smart man. I think he's got our best interest in mind. He bailed you out before. Going to bail you out again. You can't have it both ways. You can't say, we just want to be able to compete, and then be okay with not being able to compete and being bailed out by subsidies. These voters in these rural communities who depend on rural hospitals, those hospitals are going to be closed because of Republican policy. Taking funding away from Medicaid, Medicare is going to close rural hospitals in those communities. Their healthcare costs are going to increase exponentially because their party has not supported and or provided and or advocated for an affordable healthcare solution, which brings us back to our conversation today. That's it. That's it. This is part of the messy side of politics. People are being harmed. In my opinion, it's intentional, because we certainly know that if these family farms go under, who's in a position to buy it up? It's companies like Acre Trader, J.D. Vance, Peter Thiel, large multinational VC firms just acquiring more wealth. And people in these communities still trust Trump to be the answer. We can connect all kinds of dots. Racism, white supremacy, whatever it might be. Yes, and they're all fucking related. No doubt about it. This is where we're at, though, right? This is part of the conversation that we're having today, is that people who still support this for whatever reason, even though they're being screwed over every single day, they're being screwed over with no desire, with their leadership, their elected officials have no desire to solve their problems. None whatsoever. They are not interested in solving their problems. They are just they're consumed by power. They're consumed by their access to status, whatever it might be. Done. And then healthcare, family farms probably use the ACA. And their subsidies are going to spike like crazy because their elected officials do not have the ability to provide them a solution. So here we are. Here we are. Let me just thank a couple people real quick. Thank you to Jennifer. Jennifer, I appreciate you very much. Thank you for Jennifer started the $2 train. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Lori. I appreciate you very much. Thank you, guys. If you want to support the channel, best way to do that is through the various appetizers apps, Cash App, PayPal, Venmo. Everything is at Factsstillmatter. So thank you very much. Overstreet, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you doing today?
Fine, thank you. What's on your mind?
So I don't want you to take this offensive or anything when I come back, because I'm like you, I'm juggling, trying to understand how I should think about this as well. But my question to you is, what has changed as a progressive from the start of this shutdown to the end? Because at the start, I feel like you were very adamant. Democrats need to hold steady, don't switch up. So what has changed for you?
Nothing's changed other than the fact that I know Republicans are not going to vote to extend ACA tax credits. Nothing has changed. That's going to go away. They're going to expire at the end of the year. Nothing has changed. I still feel the same way. The issue, though, is that we now have the President of the United States denying SNAP funding even after being told that the court is mandating him to do so. Nothing has changed for me. I still feel the same way about it.
Okay, so before we went into the shutdown, if I'm not mistaken, we had Republicans already coming out saying that they weren't going to budge on this or anything from the start, correct?
Yeah, that's kind of my point, right? That's kind of my point. So at the beginning of the shutdown, what would the expectation be? That Democrats would just give in? No.
No, that's what I'm saying. If we knew from the beginning they had this stance of not caving, not giving in, so why do we? If we knew we were going to cave, what was the point in beginning it?
Because that's politics, Overstreet. That's politics. You have to put people on the record saying this is what's happened. These are the things that are happening. The president is now denying SNAP benefits. They're continuing to fire more employees. We're sending $40 billion to Argentina. We're sending $130 million so that Christine Noem can get 2 jets. We're talking about building a ballroom. These are all the things that have been exposed during this time. It's not a perfect solution. I get it. But nothing has changed from my perspective. The things that still matter to me. I just know that the only way that's going to happen, I'm a pragmatic progressive. The only way that things are going to happen, like healthcare, is for Republicans to be willing to vote on it. Without that, we don't get it anyway. So I say put them on blast. Remind them that this is going to happen. Meanwhile, people are starving. Meanwhile, people have lost their job. Meanwhile, people can't pay their bills. Meanwhile, federal employees are being fired for no reason whatsoever. With being underfunded, those kinds of things. That hasn't changed for me.
And I definitely understand what you're saying, from putting them on record, making them show accountability somewhat, at least from their voice of what they are saying they stand for, blase, blase. But
correct.
I don't really understand what that does for Democrats anyways, because I feel like we're not getting anything from that voter base regardless, because they'll just come out with a lie and spin it. So that perspective doesn't really matter to me. But the perspective on people starving and people like not having funds for their families at this time, my thing is, as a progressive, no progressive movement in this country has ever been successful without struggling and knowing we're going to struggle. So if I was doing a sit-in this weekend and I got my ass beat during the civil rights movement, am I just supposed to say, oh, next week I can't show up, guys, because I know what's there to, like, what is coming. So I just can't show up for that. Or do I continue to show up, get my ass beat, and then get what I deserve as a human at the end of it? Like, we can't just say, I'm scared for people not having food today, so I'm okay with people dying next year because they have food today.
So I don't disagree. It's a very fair argument, but what's the alternative? That's what I've been asking people this morning. So, like, what's the alternative?
Well, in that aspect, I feel like we just sit in this pocket. Like, I feel like people are just saying, oh, because the Democrats are holding out, then people starving is only on their hands. No, I feel like Democrats can't always be the grown-ups in the room, I feel like. And we have to expose that. And the only way to expose that is, unfortunately, to make people suffer sometimes. And I feel like if we just give in, that suffering aspect goes away and then people's attention goes away from the subject.
Well, I don't think the suffering has gone away at all, because there's still going to be people unless they agree to extend the SNAP or the ACA. I don't think the suffering has ended, to be honest. I think it's just going to get worse.
Well,
right?
Yeah, I understand. I'm talking about the short-term suffering from SNAP benefits or people not getting paid. That is going to go away. But yes, the long-term the cans are getting kicked down the road. But now people's, like I said, attention gets off of the subject because the suffering right now goes away. But we know that the suffering is coming, but the people that we need their attention on it, that's going to go away until those, I guess, medical bills start showing up again. But for the now, people's attention goes away from the subject.
I think I'll challenge that our attention goes away if we let it go away. Still have to remind people what's at stake here. We still have to remind people that those healthcare subsidies are going to expire at the end of the year. The Democrats went into this with that as their wish list. Extend the ACA subsidies. That's what they wanted. That's what this was about, because everybody's healthcare costs go up. And then during this 40 days, it just showed the Republican Party is not interested in doing that. Now, perhaps Democrats thought there would be some movement. I don't think they did. I think they knew. This is political gamesmanship. This is what happens. This is the ugly side of politics. This is what happens. You need bicameral legislatures. You need agreements to get policy. Democrats don't hold the power to push policy. So you had to do something. And I want to remind people the anger needs to be directed at the people who caused this. And that is Republicans. It's not the Democrats. There's 8 people we can point our anger at. Sure. But it's not Democrats. It's Republicans. They're the ones that don't want to feed people. They're the ones that want people to lose their health care. They're the ones that want essential workers to go unpaid. They're the ones that support firing federal workers. It is them. They're the ones that did it.
Yeah, and I understand, but I feel like that anger that we have, a weapon of that anger is taken away from us from agreeing to pass this CR. Like, we have no leverage to expose our anger other than just showing up every week on the House floor and say we don't like this every week like we've been doing for years, but that doesn't get anything passed, I feel like.
So what's your alternative, though? That's what I've been asking for all morning. What is your solution?
I say sit in the pocket, make people endure us suffering, because without suffering, people aren't going to have their attention on it. That's the simple fact. If people's life just goes the same way it has gone the last few years, just barely getting by, people are okay with that. But when they are put in a position...
But for how long?
Huh?
But for how long? But for how long?
I'm not sure. When there were civil rights movements going on, did we have a timeline? No. People just had to continue to show up and suffer.
But I'm asking you now, though. But for how long? How long does this go?
Until the change is made. Until the change is made. That's what we have to do as progressives.
But who's
we as a people, we have to sit in the pocket and make them have to vote on giving the ACA credits. We can't just say, okay, well, you said you'll give us a vote, so we'll keep your word. No, because you lie to us every day about more egregious things. So I say we sit in the pocket. We all suffer until we push their hand enough. I mean, eventually they can't overpower the people. Like, eventually it would get to a boiling point that they can't endure anymore. So I feel like we all sit in the pocket, endure the suffering, help our neighbors, and until we get something passed.
Okay. Are you a recipient of SNAP or Medicaid or on the ACA?
I'm not. My sister is, but I made sure that her and her kids still have food this month. I feel like that's what we have to do.
Okay. That's asking a lot when some people are already struggling to get by. I appreciate your heart. I really appreciate your altruistic heart. But again, we've got to solve it somewhere. And if the pressure, I think we've covered that. But I appreciate you jumping in today. I really do. Thanks for being here.
I got you. Thank you.
Thanks. You got it. I get it. I totally understand. I get it. I get that sentiment. I get it. We still have to solve for this, though. We still have to fix it. It still has to be done. I just don't. What I've not heard from anybody this morning is how long are we willing to let this go? Months? A year? How long? Is that really what we want? I can't speak for I can't speak for people who are recipients of these programs. I can't speak for people who are recipients of Medicare. I can speak for people who are about to see their ACA premiums go up because I'm on the ACA. I'm struggling here. I'm struggling trying to navigate through this. Let me bring up my friend, since she was kind enough to have me up last night. Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm all right here.
Okay. Yeah, we talked about it this last night, and I am still in the same position that I'm in, even after listening to a couple of other people, and I'll share with you why. So I had a friend of mine say to me this morning that Democrats are playing the long game because they're supposed to vote in December, and everything is only funded through the end of January, and things will be, the Republicans will be back in the same position, and they don't want to have to run after they don't extend the ACA credits. But here's my thing. Everyone is talking like we are playing regular politics. We are not. I don't know why people do not understand that this is not the regular ugly game of politics. They literally give zero fucks about this country, and they intend to change our entire democracy. So there is no, once we get down the road, we can do A, B, C, D, X, Y, Z. They are not playing politics. And so when you ask me, and by the way, Steve, you know my grandbabies are with me. They are recipients of Medicaid and they have SNAP, right? I fill in the gaps for everything that they don't have. And so for me, I understand exactly where we are as someone who does struggle to make sure that my entire family is okay. But here's my thing. The biggest thing, when you say, what were they going to do? The truth is, we don't know, and we will never know until they are pushed to the absolute max and they have to make a choice. And we caved before we reached that max. And that's my thing about this. When you say, how long should we have let it go? I don't know, but here's what I can tell you is we weren't there yet. We were not at the maximum. And the reason I know we weren't at the maximum is because last week's election showed you that this entire country had the backs of Democrats. The entire country said, we get it. We see them as the bad guys. We finally understand. We are behind you. And we just gave all of that back. Even if you say people are hurting, whatever, that's just where I'm at. We lost the momentum that we had. And that's the problem that I have with all of this. And when you say, if you say, okay, I heard you say this a minute ago. Oh, well, they'll forget if we let them forget. We don't have, I hate to say this, but the liberal progressive people in this country do not have the mainstream media. We don't have the luxury of controlling the damn narrative that hits every outlet everywhere. We don't have that. They do. We did our damnedest. Steve, you and I were here a year ago doing our absolute damnedest to prevent us from getting here. But we don't control mainstream media. And that's the problem that I have with this. We cannot change in 3 weeks what they have cultivated in the last decade.
I don't disagree with that. I agree, I disagree with you a little bit to say that we've lost all that momentum. We're feeling this emotional connection to this that's less than 12 hours old. I don't entirely agree. Let's see some of the polling data. I don't entirely agree yet that we've lost all the momentum. The reason I say that is because the problems of the economy, the issue with ICE, the issue with tariffs, all that existed long before this. That has already been out there. There was a referendum on Trump-era politics on election day. There's no doubt about that. We'll see how it plays out. The question, though, becomes, like we discussed last night, at some point this has to end. And it's so who are we willing to sacrifice?
Here's my point. They are willing to sacrifice everyone.
Who are we willing to sacrifice?
Right. And my point is, well, let's see when we get there. We are not there.
No, but I'm asking you now.
At the very least, you know what I would say? At the very least, until December 3rd. I would say at the very least until December 3rd, and I'll tell you why. The reason I say at the very least until December 3rd is there's a special election in Tennessee for Congress. Afton Bain is the Democratic candidate. She has a hell of a good chance of flipping Mark Green's old seat. There's a ton of momentum around that. I would have 100% stuck my guns because I'm going to tell you, if they flip that seat in Tennessee, holy shit, the entire GOP would be peeing their pants. And so my point is this is what I said to you. If I were every one of them Democratic members of Congress, I would have said, I'm going to take my salary for the last 2 months, half of it, 2/3 of it, whatever I could afford to do. I would have taken that money. I would have gone back home into my districts. I would have bought food for people. I would have sat down and I would have talked to my neighbors. I would have talked to people that have ACA marketplace. I would have said, this is why I'm doing this. I know that it hurts. I'm willing to put myself on the line right here with you. We are in this together. That is the position that I would have taken. I would have been going live from my constituents' houses and saying, this is what's at stake. She's at stake. He's at stake. These at stake. And I would have personalized it. And then let's see how much the Republican Party is actually willing to let people suffer. But we didn't even get that far. We took one damn win. And I'll tell you why I think it's orchestrated. And this is the part that makes me angry. I believe it's orchestrated because there's not a single one of the people that said yes that are up for reelection. None of them are up for reelection in 2026. So that makes me think this was orchestrated, and they specifically chose Democrats that would not be hurt in the 2026 midterms in order to do this deal. I really do.
I don't disagree with what you're saying, Danny. I don't. I'm just trying to look at this objectively. What we know, what we had yesterday, what we have tomorrow, because I'm still not thinking, I'm not convinced this is even going to pass the Senate. To be honest, just because of some of the machinations connected to a commitment to vote, and I highly doubt it's going to pass the House. So nothing has changed. In my opinion, that is a good political win because that puts Republicans on blast to say they never had any desire to solve the healthcare crisis.
Except that Democrats have taken a hit publicly. The one thing that has changed is people are going same shit. That's the thing that's changed. Last week, everybody was like, hell yeah, Dems, stick to it. This week, they're like, same, different wing, same bird, same wing. And that's what's happened. They have fucked themselves in the eyes of the people. Let me ask you this. Have you read Dawn's Early Light?
I don't think so. Maybe.
Okay, so this is probably why I see it a little bit different. So Dawn's Early Light is written by Kevin Roberts, former president of the Heritage Foundation.
Yes, I think I know what you're talking about. Yep.
Yeah, J.D. Vance wrote the foreword to that book. Steve, they say in that book, they are absolutely going to burn down everything. They actually say that what we need is a slow, controlled burn. That's what they say. And my thing is, that's what they're counting on. They're counting on a slow, controlled burn so that it's a little hurt at a time. And then before people know it, we're all cooked. And I say, don't give them a slow burn. Set this shit on fire today if that's what they need. Because I would just rather people know that we are already on fire rather than this slow burn that they want. That's their plan. They refer to us as parasites in this book. They say they want to undo the mistakes that we did in the 60s and 70s for people. What did we do, Steve, as a nation in terms of liberalism? What are the things that we did as a country in the 60s and 70s?
Voting rights, Civil Rights Act, extension to, protections for women's bodies into the 70s.
Yep. All of those things.
I got you.
And they literally outline in this book, and they say it's not enough to just undo them. It's not enough to just what we have to literally scorch the earth and redo it. That's literally and J.D. Vance agrees. That is the vice president. And everybody keeps looking at Trump. That joker ain't gonna be here forever. And they have put somebody in there that is young and that is 100% on board because he has no loyalty. His loyalty is money, power, and position. And that is my thing. I think everyone is thinking like this is regular politics, and this ain't regular politics. This is literally war.
I'm not making this okay. I just need to address a comment. I'm not making this okay. I'm just talking about this strictly objectively. What is in this bill? What it potentially could do? Am I angry that we don't have a healthcare solution? Absolutely, I am. Absolutely, I'm angry. I'm also angry that people aren't getting fed. I'm angry that people lost their jobs. I'm angry that WIC's not being supported. I'm angry that people were fired illegally. I'm angry about all that shit. I'm angry about all of it. I am not in any way justifying any of this. We have to figure out a solution to this. And the solution has to involve Republicans because they hold the majority. How long would this go? Because I asked you last night, Danny, and you said your answer was you'd be okay if this was 2 or 3 months down the road and they finally vote.
Because I don't know if I don't know how long it's going to take. But this is my thing: is they're going to do those things anyway, Steve. They're going to do those things, and so this is my thing. So number one, I do believe in people. I believe in the heart of the average person, and I believe collectively people would come together and mitigate some of this harm. I do believe that. I see it every day within our communities. And so my point is that the only time that we have ever had massive change in this country has been when we've had to sacrifice for a long time. The only reason we have a 40-hour work week, how did we get the deals that we have with GM in Detroit? They went on a 21-day, right? They took over 4 plants. Like, it's never been, there's a book that I have. It's from the Schomburg in the Schomburg Library in Harlem. And it says, power concedes nothing without demand. And my point is, yes, it has to include Republicans, but they are not going to do anything until they are hurt, until they have to. And I don't think 40 days was long enough for them to have to. And I tell you why it really irks me. So do you know what Trump did? As soon as this was a done deal, he spit in our face and pardoned every single person that tried to overthrow democracy. That was like, oh, you guys caved? Let me spit in your face some more, and I'm going to pardon all of these people that tried to ruin this country. They are literally playing, and this is how I feel. I feel like they're playing in my face, and it makes me angry. And for me, I just be like, well, we're going to ride this damn thing till the wheels fall off. Because I don't think those boys are as tough as they think they are. I think the middle class, I think the lower middle class, I think the poor in this country, I think regular Americans are tougher than the damn GOP. I think they're soft and I think they're weak. And I think the people could hold out longer than them and do this the right way. 100%. I just do.
I got you. I understand. You made a point. Yeah, I don't disagree, and I've not done a good job explaining this morning, and that's fine. I'm not up here for people to disagree with everything I say. I'm certainly not. That's not how I run this. That's not how I run our show. At some point there has to be a solution. At some point, and I don't see a solution. Instead, I'd rather make it brutally obvious who is to blame for this. And it's the Republican Party. The anger cannot be at Democrats. The Democrats do it, but we were already in a circular firing squad. It has to be at the people who brought us here. We're here because of Republicans. We're here because of them.
It was. And the thing is, and here's my thing, Steve, I really want to say this. If the people were at their absolute breaking point, they would have let the Democrats know that. But they weren't there yet. That's my point. That's my point. Is I don't want people to suffer either. But my point is if the people were like, this is too long, we wouldn't have had the resounding wins that we had a week ago. The people were still with the Democrats, and they caved too early without pressure from the people. Without pressure from the people. There was no need for it. And today would have been an even bigger thing. This is the thing. As soon as the first court woke up this morning, what did they say? No, you can't withhold SNAP benefits. What's Trump going to do? Appeal it to the Supreme Court? He would have looked like an asshole for going to the Supreme Court to not feed people. They should have just held the line.
It's already done that once, though.
Right, but my point is, it takes more than once. Repetition is what makes things stick. Repetition. Yeah. And what people need to see is him refusing to do right by people over and over and over again. They need to see him go to the Supreme Court and say, oh, I don't want to feed people. They need to see him say, I'm not going to extend healthcare subsidies for the American people. They need to see him be exactly who he is and the Republicans that are allowing him to do it. The people are ready. The people are ready to fight, and the Democratic Party needed to stay on the front of those lines and be like, let's go. And that's what I feel with every fiber of my being, not because I want people to suffer. And yes, I know that there has to be a solution at some point. We just weren't at the point where it had to be right now. We weren't. And like I said to you last night, I feel like if this had gone on through November and corporate America would have had to endure a Black Friday that was gray, a Black Friday that sent their ass into the red, if airlines had to keep cutting back on their travelers when it comes to the weekends. We got technology. Do you want to know how I know people can get through the holidays without seeing each other? Because we did during C-19. We could have Zoomed each other. We could have Skyped each other. We'd have been okay, right? But those corporations wouldn't have been okay. They would not have been okay. And that's my thing. I just think we needed to hold the line longer, and we didn't. And it's not going to play great for the Dems. That's just my thing.
Appreciate you, Danny. Thanks for jumping in, and thanks for letting me up.
Yep,
Thanks for letting me up last night. You got it. Have a good day.
Yeah.
Again, very valid points. I still think Black Friday is going to be gray because people don't have a lot of money to spend. Prices are still up. Inflation is still there. So all those things still exist. Made a very, 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 very valid point. Right? I get it. All right. There's reporting, by the way. I wanted to share this story. In a letter to the president, House Democrats say Ghislaine Maxwell's treatment as she prepares a clemency request makes a convicted offender look like a guest at a Trump hotel. Maxwell, the Eastine confidant and convicted trafficker, is being waited on hand and foot by staff at her minimum security prison while she prepares a request that President Trump commune her sentence, according to whistleblower revelations made public on Monday by House Democrats. The deference and servility to Ms. Maxwell have reached such preposterous levels that one of the top officials of the facility has complained that he is, quote, sick of having to be Maxwell's bitch, according to a letter to Trump from Rep. Jamie Raskin of Maryland, the ranking Democrat on the House Judiciary Committee. In August, Maxwell, who's serving a 20-year sentence for helping Epstein prey on children and young women, had an unusual interview with the Deputy Attorney General, Todd Blanche, who once was Trump's personal defense attorney. She told Blanche she never saw Trump behaving inappropriately. After the interview, she was transferred from a low-security prison in Florida to a minimum-security federal prison camp in Texas. Federal Bureau of Prisons has not explained the transfer, which MSNBC, CNN, and other outlets reported deviated from a policy that generally forbids offenders from serving in prison camps. So, yeah, that's good. Appreciate that. I have to check something really quick because I might have to end a little bit early today, guys. Hang tight 1 second. You've got to end it just a little bit after 11, but we'll go there. We'll go until then. Good morning. How are you today? Hello?
Good morning. Good morning. I wanted to just pop up and say that I think your last guest was right. I think America was ready to stand with the people to support the needs, and we should have waited and shown them and left them ass out for Black Friday. I think that the people have to take the idea of government into our own hands. I don't think we did the right thing by capitulating. I understand your point of view, but I just don't think that people are going to be able to figure it out in order to blame it on the Republicans.
We can still protest Black Friday though, Mel, right? That doesn't change.
We will.
People can still do that, right?
I hope that we will do everything that we were planning to do, despite us being, I feel personally let down by those Democrats. And I think it's very true that since they're not up for re-election, they were put on the chopping block to make a bigger deal. A secret deal, if you will, in the back room. It just smacks of the old way of doing things, and I feel like we were let down by the Dems. What was the point of doing it all this time if they were going to do this now? I'm just so bummed. I don't know. They're playing some long game that maybe I don't know anything about, but it came across as a disappointment to me. It really did. I'm bummed.
I appreciate you jumping in today. Thanks for being here. Thanks a
All
lot.
right. Bye.
Good morning, sir. How are you today? Okay. Good morning, Rhea. How are you today?
Good morning. I'm doing well, Steve. I want to be quick. I agree with most of the people that came up here, but I want to just recognize the way that you've handled this conversation. I know it hasn't been easy, but I do think it's an important conversation to have to talk through all of these points. And you haven't been defensive once. And I'm just really impressed and really grateful for what you do here every day.
Thanks for saying that. Yeah, it takes a lot to rattle me like that, but I appreciate you saying that. That's the whole point of having these conversations, is so that we can have these conversations, and I trust this live immensely. So thank you for that. I appreciate it, Rhea.
Of course, have a good day.
YouTube, see you later. Again, these are conversations that we've spent how many years? 4 years building this platform that I want to be able to have. I tell my mods, I want to be challenged. I don't think I've done necessarily a good job of making my point. I'm just trying to say that we've got a potential opportunity to reduce harm for a large chunk of the population, while another chunk of the population is going to continue to be harmed. That's kind of where it comes down to, but I appreciate you saying that, Rhea. Thank you very much. Okay.
Well, hello.
Hey, friend. How's it going?
It's going. I'm in Virginia. I know you know I'm a small business owner, but I'm also a grassroots organizer. And I'm going to say a few different things that's been said because I have a lot of opinions, especially my proximity to Senator Kaine, Senator Warner as a grassroots organizer, and all of these politicians at every level of government. All of this is very disappointing to me. My response has been in the last 24 hours that Warner needs to be primaried, and not just because of this, even though he is essentially a no vote, but as example, it's punishment for his partner. And that's how I feel about it. Because Warner's also taken some really bad votes with Trump appointees. He also voted for the Lake and Riley bill. And so we can't be in a box necessarily with this one thing, but what I'm going to kind of, the approach, the things that we're fighting for as Democrats, they don't impact me personally, but they impact the people around me, which is why I care so much about it. We have a part-time employee that's worked for us for a decade. He started as holiday help when we were in a mall location, and he has never left because we never wanted him to. And he's been with us for over 10 years, and he's been furloughed. And I can see when he comes to work, he's been picking up hours, for other my employees. He's been happy to pick up, but I can see the impact of being furloughed on him. And obviously, I do a lot of mutual aid stuff in my community. So I see the impact that the food situation is having on people. I don't believe that they should. I think they should have held out. I will be clear about that. But I'm just here, Steve, to get into the conversation about this is why people need to get involved. And I don't mean at a federal level. I don't insert myself into congressional races much, other than as a grassroots, person, letting, people know as a leftist, like who I'm behind, in primaries and things like that. Because at a federal level, y'all, the issue here isn't Democrats and Republicans. The issue here is money. There's,
absolutely,
we can say that we want to primary Senator Warner, right? But if we don't have millions of dollars to do it, Not shit's getting done. And it's the same thing with Congress. So this starts at home. This starts in your neighborhood. This starts with your school board. It starts with your city council, your alderman, whatever those people are called in your neighborhood. These people are the seed seats for the people that we're bitching about that are sitting comfortably with health care and paychecks called senators and Congress people. They are unaffected, not impacted. And the generational wealth that most of these people have, their families are not impacted. They don't have people in close proximity to them that are impacted by these things. And they live in a totally different world than we live in. They do. They just do. I escorted Mark Warner to it. We had a huge grassroots event right before the election for Abigail Spanberger and focus on education at the Education Association's office. And again, I see these people, right? And you know what else I see? I see Democrats who are clamoring to take pictures with him and Senator Kaine and Congress people. I see them with stars and hearts in their eyes when they're in their personal space, because we are too cowardly to stand and look someone in an eye at that level, because we have put these people on such a high pedestal for so long that we don't treat them as we would each other, right? When we're having discourse about policy. And these people live in the world of 5-minute conversation, Steve. You live in a world every day of a 4-hour conversation. And I listen to you almost every single morning. Like if I'm sitting around, I'm listening. You know what I mean? And I jump in and I request when I want to add something that I feel like is of value. Most of the time, your information is so valuable, I don't really have anything else to add to it.
Thank you.
But it's very frustrating as a grassroots organizer to see so many people who are aware and know what's going on in politics, especially at a federal level, but they don't get involved and get organized and understand what's happening in their own city or in their state legislation, because that's what's going to protect us and our people, right? So I don't know. You're doing a good job talking about it. I definitely have had my moments this morning where I'm like, I don't agree. But, and Danny, yeah. I do agree with Danny. I do agree that we didn't force, we just went ahead. And let me tell you something. My husband has been kind of like laughing at me because I'm like, why can't I get off of my couch or out of my bed after this election? Because I worked my ass off, y'all, for 9 months. And I was on a House of Delegates campaign. I was a campaign manager for a delegate campaign that did not win their seat. That was a Democrat, because the Congresswoman Kiggins lives in my actual House district. So I live in a red, wealthy district in my city. And I worked hard for 9 months. And it was hard for me to celebrate our trifecta win. Right. It was hard. It was hard for me to celebrate that, just because, of course, I was on a campaign that didn't win. We were on the cusp, but we just didn't. It wasn't enough of a push to get us over. So I just ask people, like, please understand that this is a money problem. These people at a federal level are untouchable. It's a money problem at all levels, right? But these people at a federal level,
it's a money problem everywhere. Right?
Yeah.
It's a money problem everywhere. Yeah.
It is. So that's the thing. And just get involved in local, because all of these people that we see in state legislature and federal, y'all, they started in your neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And this is a long term. These Republicans have been playing this game for decades, and Democrats are only 6 months ahead of the game. We're always scrambling for candidates. We're always scrambling for money. We're scrambling because they have done a long term plan. And I see this in political organizing every single day. And I do believe that this was very strategic. We won the election. They're like, oh, we showed them. So now they caved. Anyways.
I appreciate you. I appreciate your perspective, and you're absolutely right. We talk about that a lot, about grassroots activism, and Moms of Liberty, for example, went 0 for 32 in their school board races.
Yep.
So it's important. I mean, we should be paying attention more. Activism. I'm glad people are angry today. I hope that anger turns into something. I really do. But thank you. I respect you tremendously. I appreciate you being here. Thanks a lot. See you later. All right, take care. All right, I got to wrap. So listen. I appreciate your kind words. Like I said from the very beginning, right? I knew this was going to be a bit of a controversial stance. I don't think I've necessarily made my point other than to point out that there is going to be harm across the board. It's one group of people or another group of people. And I guess the question we have to ask ourselves is how much further are we going to go? And I think the 8 moderate Democrats, not the entire party, 8 moderate Democrats have made that decision that they didn't want to see harm to this group of people continue any further. I don't think this is over. You can contact your senators. The names are Rosen, Cortez Masto, Hassan, Fetterman, Shaheen, Kane. Who else am I missing? I think there's a couple more in there. Contact them. They are listening. They want to hear from their constituents, right? They want to hear from their voters. They want to hear from you to see how far you want them to go. This is not going to be. I don't think the House is going to vote for Dick Durbin's another one. Exactly. Durbin's another one. Thank you for that. I don't think the House is going to vote for this. I really don't. The burden then becomes on Republicans to solve a healthcare crisis that they created in the first place. Thank you, Sam. Senate switchboard 202-224-3121. They're there. They are the Angus Kin was the other name. So it's Durbin, King, Hassan, Shaheen, Cortez Masto, Rosen, Kane. Did I get them all? I think that's it. So 202-224-3121. They're listening, right? They are listening. And if you are impassioned enough to make that call, Fetterman, that's the last one. That's the last one I forgot. If you are impassioned enough to make that call, then make it. Then make that call. Thank you for the good conversation today. I appreciate everybody. We'll see you tomorrow morning.